Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special commentary. The bulk of it is the AVGN movie. However, since this is my one and only opportunity on this channel to talk about the Angry Video Game Nerd history, I figured we would make this an extravaganza part of it. Basically, everybody, I'm going to go looking for the history of the AVGN and some stuff leading to the movie, as well as some stuff that happened post-movie. We have quite a lot of stuff to go through, so I'm not going to go into much on it. I'll talk more about it in depth during the movie itself. For now, I want you guys to look at that first video we have in the description called Interesting Thoughts from James Rolfe. I want you two guys watch this to set up some interesting things for what's going to come later and in the movie itself, because it makes it all the more interesting. 3, 2, 1, click. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with him, Dibs, about the Batman 60s series? How they ended up at the perfect time?
I haven't seen all of it, so...
Okay. There's one particular... Yeah, this one is the one I wanted you to watch. Check this out.
I'm the personality.
Hey, Dej, how's your hindsight doing it for you right now? You don't say, James.
Ooh.
Don't worry, everybody. By the time we're done with this, yeah, these comments will make a lot more sense of why I'm showing you this context.
Oh, hey, one of the Renter Reviews episodes that I guess wasn't boring.
Oh, the rental reviews. I'm not even going to go into a rant about that because that's not even necessarily related. Like, but maybe I'll bring it up during the movie itself. I will do
It's somewhat tangential, but let's move on to the next thing, shall we?
Yeah. Okay, there's one more bit, everybody. This is only 1 minute long. It's called More Interesting Thoughts from James Rolfe and Mike Matei. This is from the same channel, and this is only a 1 minute video because, again, I want to also make sure that this is something that is going to come up later during the last video we're doing today. 3, 2, 1, click.
It's like he was self-aware, only it was too early.
Kari is looking at he's like, beach, please.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, it's for the better that. Yeah, but yeah, of course, quality over quantity. That makes perfect sense to me. Indeed. All right, everybody. Now, as you know, James recently has been, pretty much assumed by a lot of fans who see his videos that he has gotten a lot of burnout and tired of the nerd. And one of the things about that not a lot of people know about James Rolfe is that he sucks at handling technology. I'm not going to go into a big video about it, even though I could. Let's just watch this one called James Rolfe, AVGN, Not Understanding Computers for 3 minutes. This video is unintentionally hilarious. 3, 2, 1, click. Basically, this is an attempt to record the AVGN games. And since they don't have Mac versions, he had to use a Windows computer to record them.
Was this before Xbox Game Bar existed?
Yes. This was like 2012, I think.
We're to a point where 2012 stuff looks retro now.
Feeling old yet, Jova?
Nah, it just really makes you think about how quickly we're advancing in tech.
Okay, so James, don't use. Who the hell told him to use Fraps? Fraps sucks.
I forget if Fraps was the best thing at the time.
Yeah, like a very in the early late 2000s, yes, and then 2010s, people were using Hopalodged and Elgato.
Okay, look, I'm gonna get this out of the way. I have been doing some research on AVGN and by extension Cinemassacre as research for this commentary project here. I think where I can base the issues with James is strictly the point in time when he became a big shot. Now, I won't build off of that fully yet, because a lot of that has to do with the problems of the movie, but just keep in mind, when he became a big shot, how he became a big shot, and how that connects to kind of the modern issues with the show.
Let me just recap this, Joe. Basically, he had to transfer the footage from the Mac to, from the Windows computer to the Mac so he could edit it on the Mac. Problem is, every time he did it, it came out fucked like he just showed there.
Which I'm curious as to what the hell he used that caused it to end up like that.
Yeah, we have Deji here, who's a fellow Mac user, so he can help us with any possible stuff. For some reason, the footage always came all fucked when, which again begs the question, okay, if you're having someone, and you just mentioned that they spent like a month trying to figure this shit out. Okay, if it's taking that long, James, why not just edit the footage and make the video on the Windows computer that you recorded from then at that point?
Because he had a methodology and wasn't exactly willing to change it.
Yeah, this is also going to start to become one of James's problems. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say this to attack. I'm just saying that, this is where a problem, because James has a problem with getting out of his comfort zone. He wants to use a Mac because it's what he's used to. He uses Panasonic cameras because that's the kind of cameras you learn to use in film school. James is very stuck in his ways, and very rarely you see him actually try to adapt to, more convenient methods of production.
And in regards to the whole, critiquing him is attacking him, let me just preface this by saying, AVGN is not some charity show, okay? Like, yes, technically we get to watch it for free, but that is free with ads plastered in throughout, essentially. He makes legit money off of this stuff. For all intents and purposes, Angry Video Game Nerd is a TV show, an online one, but it is essentially still a series with commercials, advertising, money that he used to also host stuff like that odd Rex Viper band project of his, which also gets monetized videos, so it's fair game for criticism. Heck, even if it was free, he's an artist, and like any artist, your work is eligible to be critiqued if you put it out there.
Ditto. Anyway, basically, now we're going to get into the movie-related stuff, everybody. I'm going to give you guys a link to the description, but we're not going to watch this video because this video is 60 minutes long, so it's too long. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, though. Basically, it's during the production of the AVGN movie, which is our star product of today's commentary, James posted various vlog updates. This particular vlog that I linked you guys to is an update of mine because James removed this particular vlog from the channel. Now, why did he remove it? Because all the other ones are still there. Basically, everybody, there's a point in this particular vlog that I want to point out where he says, "Oh man, this is trust me, I want to get this movie done. I want and this is when I was having troubles filming, I was like, oh god, this is the AVGN movie. I started to feel the pressure. I want this to live up to fans' expectations and shit. So keep that in mind." because it's going to be important when I address one of the primary defenses of the movie that I've heard online. And now, everybody, the final video we're going to watch before we get into the movie itself is the inside look video, where, this is another one that also helps me create a context that will make you guys understand one of my refutals to one of the biggest defenses of the movie in particular, that some fans have. 3, 2, 1, click. All right, so let's check out the behind-the-scenes stuff. So this is one thing that people also have to remember about James. James is, despite his more popular character being the angry video nerd, he's not really a gamer per se. He's more so like his big passion is actually filmmaking. Yes, he played games as a child, but he doesn't really play games like normally. It's not really one of his main hobbies.
Let me put it like this.
Nitro Red is a similar thing.
Wait, really? I feel like Nitro Red...
He went to film school and wanted to make a movie, but the Canadian government basically fucked him over, and he started his YouTube channel because of that. Oh,
I didn't know that. Shit.
Dang. I will say this, though. At the very least, I feel like Nitro Red still maintains a better knowledge of modern games. You'll see later in the actual movie that one of Jane's issues is that he does not get modern gaming terminology all that well. Again, though, that's in the movie, you'll see. But yes, they did get a tank. No, he actually...
basically... One of the things that James was particularly proud of is the practical effects in the movie, which to his credit, there are some interesting practical effects in the movie, so that's cool. That being said, one thing that is also I want to note for the movie itself is Kevin Finn. Kevin Finn is another college friend of his, and both of them met in college, and they've always wanted to make films. That was always both their big business. So when it came to them to make this movie, he got his college friend Kevin Finn to co-direct and co-write the movie with him. That's exactly from the movie.
Great.
So keep that in mind as we watch the movie for later after this, because I'm going to bring up something about that.
And of course, another thing that is important for the movie is that this movie was done before there was actual confirmation about the ET cartridges being buried. So James actually went still on what was essentially urban myth at the time.
Right, so, this movie was crowdfunded. Now, keep in mind, at the time, a content creator crowdfunding something was seen as, well, kind of taboo.
A brand new thing.
Yeah, like, people were very doubtful about this, but no, it ended up working. And more or less has cleared the road for this kind of stuff. Like, again, you gotta keep in mind, this was before stuff like even Patreon had blossomed. Go on.
Well, I can tell you, Joe, that back when James first announced this project back in 2010, everybody in the fan base was super ecstatic about the idea. Because remember, the whole idea of an internet celebrity having his own movie, nowadays that shit has been exploited ad nauseum. But this was still like a brand new fucking thing. And James is an actual filmmaker, so people didn't really have any reasons to think there would be any problems. Yeah, basically, this is something that James will talk about some of the ambitions for this movie in a moment. The one on the left is Kevin Finn, the co-writer and co-director, and the other one is another one of James's college friends, who is the producer, basically.
Now here's one thing to keep in mind. Despite this being independently funded and whatnot, he shot this at Hollywood. By all intents and purposes, this is actually supposed to be a Hollywood-scale movie.
It was released in theaters in America. Yep.
That being said, I'm gonna be the first to admit, when I first actually saw bits on this movie, I legit just thought it was a glorified internet project, which some might argue it is, but that's besides the point, though.
It technically is, yeah. Yeah, but right now I think we're almost at the point, I think. Okay, hold on. So I'm basically showing some of the stunts and stuff, which, again, to be fair, looks pretty cool, to be fair. Star wagons. Again, this is all pretty cool practical stuff, so I will give it credit there.
There is one thing to keep in mind, though. He arguably could have shot this elsewhere, but he chose to shoot it at Hollywood.
Oh, don't worry, Joe. I'll talk about it when we start the movie itself, because, yeah, that's one of the primary points. Yes. Yeah, here we go. Listen here.
Mission accomplished?
Yeah, notice the fact that what Jim said. And to be fair, I'm not trying to denounce him for that. It's a noble goal. He wants to try to open the path for independent filmmakers to pursue their dreams, because this is a movie that he feels like would be a really good way, when this movie comes out, it would be a great way to, inspire and open the path for other independent filmmakers to do something like this.
And again, like I said,
and that's fine. And that's cool. Yeah, I want to emphasize this. That's cool. I'm not in any way opposed to that. Go on, Jova.
I'd say technically he succeeded in paving the road.
A bit. Chris Tuckman so far is doing fine on that.
Let me put it like this, though. I don't think it happened in the way he was expecting or hoping for it to. Also, hey, Angry Joe.
Okay. That's best. Yeah, and this is, of course, something about the premiere, because this inside look video was actually made after the movie. So what you're seeing now is stuff for the premiere and shit like that.
Wait, I thought it said Italian premiere.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wasn't that like the trailer premiere, though? Because that was 2012, and the movie...
Was it? Oh, no, you're right. Never mind, you're right. I misread that. Sorry. Yeah, and see all the vlogs. Notice the December 2013 one that he puts there as one of the links. That link is no longer active, which is why I had to give an audience a re-upload of mine.
So, Pedro,
right, everybody.
Before we actually start the movie, I do have a question to ask, though. Like, this technically was not supposed to be a whole look at his entire career, because, obviously we probably won't talk about this. So one thing I do wonder is, why does this movie deserve all this preparation and possible footage afterwards?
Yes, because everybody, I want you guys to put you guys in, give you an idea of what was my mindset back in the day. Because I was a huge fan of the AVGN from the very beginning, back when YouTube became the thing for the first time. So I was genuinely there. I was super excited to watch this one, because this was an internet creator who I really admired and respected. And holy crap, James is finally making his dream. He's making his proper first Hollywood movie. That's so cool. So obviously, I, like a lot of fans at the time, was super excited. James, because remember, unlike someone like Doug Walker and other people who try to do this, James is a natural filmmaker. He went to film school. This was always his big childhood dream. So he, of all people, if anyone was going to succeed at pulling this off, it would be James, right? And trust me, everybody, I went into this movie with the most positive of attitudes. I want to put that to rest. I didn't
so wait, movie. Pedro, what you're saying is you were going to take us back to the past.
Yes, I'm going to take you guys back to the past in 2014. So we can see the Angry Video Game Nerd movie.
Which some say sucks ass.
to watch a shitty movie that sucks ass. Yes. Sorry if I spoiled the ending for you, everybody. Anyway, all right, everybody. If I remember correctly, all the copies are the same. I don't think there's extra logos, so it just starts with the Cinemassacre logo. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you heard
Okay.
the City Massacre logo?
Yes. 3, 2, 1, click. All right. So yeah, like Jovo was saying, James didn't just want to record, to shoot this movie in his house, in his neighborhood, like he did all the nerd rooms. He wanted to go to Hollywood, and keep in mind, everybody, he's on the other side of the country.
And keep in mind,
he
there
had to make
are other studios he could have filmed it, but nope, he chose the big head honcho, Hollywood.
That's because James really wanted this to be a proper Hollywood production. Because remember, this was his big dream to be in Hollywood making movies.
Now keep in mind, that particular shooting location did cost extra dough. He arguably could have saved money by filming it at a more cost-friendly studio. Now granted, from what I've been able to garner, it doesn't seem like the development really hindered any of his wishes or hopes for this. Let me put it like this. A lot of times you'll hear about history production issues that led to certain things having to be changed in the production process. From what I can regard, this is one of those cases where it more or less went just as James Rolfe wanted it to go. Oh, sure, yeah, there were hardships, but it seemed like he was more or less able to get his vision in undeterred.
Yeah, the big problem, anyone who has made films in Hollywood, everybody, will tell you that shooting in Hollywood is incredibly expensive. And the total crowdfunded budget for this movie was $352,000. Ever since then, everybody, to give you guys an idea from behind the scenes stuff, over the years, we've actually had extras from this movie come out and actually talk about how apparently there was quite a bit of incompetence on set, and that the budget was bleeded dry very quickly. And here you go. So the plot is this: Cockburn Inc. Yes, that's the name of this company, Cockburn Inc. is going to make a sequel to the Atari ET game because. And she's going to make an argument of why.
What?
Okay, allow me to explain.
They should have filmed this in Canada or somewhere.
Okay.
Go on, Joe.
Allow me to explain a lot of the humor in this movie here. You don't have to understand, it doesn't really excuse it, but here's the lowdown on James Rolfe. He is more or less the progenitor of what people nowadays like to think of as the caustic critic era. Believe it or not, you know how nowadays a lot of people aren't as fond about big rant videos or videos of people who go overly negative on stuff? Well, believe it or not, back in the earlier days of YouTube and whatnot, that was actually the zeitgeist of popularity here and there. And you know what? As somebody who was a fan of Nostalgia Critic since the late 2000s, I get it, you know? A lot of it was just the fun in seeing people tear into terrible bouts of media. That is one thing to keep in mind. Usually what people covered was more or less exclusively bad media, or media that they would up to definitely look bad enough to warrant it, to the point where it was a special occasion if they reviewed something good. Like, for example, a Nostalgia Critic reviewing Hook was considered kind of outside the box because that's generally considered a good movie. That said, around the time of, say, 2013 or 2014 was when a lot of content creators started to move away from just being purely negative. The problem is, unlike a lot of them, James Rolfe's Angry Video Game Nerd, again, the very thing that more or less kickstarted this concept, well, that was defined by it.
All right, let me mention something that I'm sure Jay wants me to miss it. Yeah, you poop. Remember that he has to change things because of the copyright stuff. All right, so here's a fun fact that I'm sure Teo wants me to bring up. The music for this movie was composed by Bear McCreary. If that name sounds familiar to you, it should. He's mostly known for being the composer of the recent God of War games.
Yep.
And to his credit, I do like this rendition of the AVGN theme that he made.
I guess they couldn't use the lyric version because otherwise the rating would have been bumped up.
Right.
No, I think this movie's still rated R, I think. They swear a lot in this movie, so I'm pretty confident this movie's still rated R.
It
All right.
depends.
So this is the opening credit sequence, and already something starts to feel off. There's a lot of footage of AVGN fans talking about how awesome the nerd is. See,
Again,
and
the
you can
idea
actually
it was
put
like
comments.
it was a part of the crowdfunding, finance this high enough and you can appear in the movie as a cameo.
Basically,
That would be fine too, but put a pin on that for now. Go on, Jova.
What you need to know is that in story, the angry video game nerd is pretty much a big and famous celebrity. Remember that because it makes certain plot points not make sense in the story. Regardless, though, back to my bit about the humor here thing. Unlike a lot of content creators, like heck, even the Nostalgia Critic moved away from being just angry, screamy, shouty man all the time, James Ralph's angry video game nerd was, well, defined by that. He was literally the angry video game nerd. And he kind of had to stick to that, and honestly, part of me feels like that was how it felt genuine to him. As we've mentioned before, James, when he gets into his comfort zone, will take a while to move out of that comfort zone, if he ever even does. And oh boy, let me just say this. The humor in this movie, was kind of already pushing it by 2014. Nowadays, though, oh god, it would be shot down like heavier than a B-20.
Let's just say there's some jokes in this movie that are a bit questionable.
Again. Here,
it was the time.
Well,
people really said whatever until recent years.
Again, that's the thing, Dej. People were already moving away from it by 2014, which is part of the reason some of the reception for this movie was not as great.
I actually never seen this movie, believe it or not. I know only the thing that happens, I guess, at the very end, because it was the most requested video that everybody wanted.
Yeah, let me explain that. Basically, everybody, one of the primary things about this movie is that one of the big selling points at first is that this is where the movie where he finally reviews the Atari ET game. Because this has always been one of the primary requests James has always got, and it's something that he's always teased throughout the episodes where James will, what game can I review there? And then his finger will go by ET, and he's like, no. And then he moves to picks another one. So this was finally going to be the big payoff for that running gag on how he never wanted to review ET. Unfortunately, because this is a movie that he wants to profit of, he cannot use the actual game, so he has to use a bootleg version of it, but we'll get to that. All right, so another thing that immediately made me think, what, when I first saw this movie, Mike Matei is not the one helping the nerd making the videos, is this character called Cooper that we've never saw in any of the episodes. Okay.
Is he the token black guy of this movie?
Kind of, actually, that's kind of, actually.
And I know
I know. I saw the Nostalgia Critic.
Okay. Here's the thing, Dej. Sadly, I don't think James was a...
Game cops.
Also, really, James, a smart...
He really liked that Wii commercial.
There you go, guys. Apparently we're finding out how the nerd is outside of the videos. Apparently he works at Game Cops.
Which, okay. I do have to point this out here. I want you to remember, in this universe, he is insanely popular to the point where you would think he's pretty rich. Yet he ends up working at a dead-end job that he pretty much admits he hates. Something doesn't match up here.
Kidding. Yeah, Joe was not kidding. Later on, it becomes even more apparent, I assure you.
Active fiction. Okay, alright, I'll be honest. When I first saw bits in this movie, I legit just thought this was, okay, not something on the level of,
Hold on.
Basically, Cooper is so...
Game dude.
Let me explain that joke. For those who weren't around in the 2000s, when it comes to YouTube, when the AVGN became popular for the first time, there were a lot of knockoff videos, of most of them, of course, being the Irate Gamer. There's also another guy called Game Dude. So that joke was basically a jab at all the various AVGN clones of the late 2000s.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I get that a lot of this humor may have worked for his AVGN videos. A lot of it does not work when it's stretched out for a movie.
I have a question. This was my question at this point in the movie. Who the fuck is Cooper? Like, he just shows up in the movie and he's not properly introduced. Like, am I supposed to know who this guy is? Because I've saw all the episodes before this movie and he was like, wouldn't it make more sense for Mike Matei to play that character? Because that would be I don't know. That's the thing, Dubs. According to production info from James, Mike Matei was the one taking care of the channel while James was away in Hollywood shooting this. So it's not like Mike couldn't go with him. I'm guessing
they
he
had
wanted Mike to
already
stay
some
behind.
minor animosity at the time.
Okay.
I doubt it, Tail, because they stuck together for 6 more years after this.
I guess it was just Mike taking over the channel. It's like, yeah, sure.
Maybe Mike did not want it to appear intentionally on his own.
Okay. For a bit of context, despite all the issues with Mike Matei, James never really seemed to have any animosity with him over it. Mike Matei left Cinemassacre all on his own volition. I am a bit mixed on that. On the one hand, it's nice that they remain friends. On the other hand, James never really did call out Mike Matei on some of his crap. Oh, God.
What the fuck are you talking about? And yet... Oh, Blackbird!
Hey.
Hi.
The only reason why I wanted to
Look at that, guys. War Duty 3000 for the Xbox 360.
Really?
Oh, sorry, for the Playbox free. For the Playbox free. Ha, 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 ha. Which is interesting because there's a fictional console in the Life is Strange universe that's also called Playbox. Yeah, you're probably starting to realize with this boss here, what is by far the most primary problem with this movie.
Oh God! And here we go.
The humor is not funny.
And get this, he's so popular that people will buy a game that he literally spits on.
Yeah. And and keep in mind, everybody, this is going to be a running theme. Everybody in this movie worships the AVGN. Literally everybody.
Far be it from me to call this a vanity project, since I'm willing to give James the benefit of the doubt that he didn't intentionally mean it.
It can work out, like with Segata Sanshiro in Project Cross Zone 2, but...
Okay.
Isn't the punchline is that James is meant to be, the nurse meant to be an loser?
No.
That's
the thing, Dej. It's like, well, no, he's not a loser because everyone loves him. And again, he's apparently a superstar in universe. In fact, literally one of the plot points will be centering around how popular he is.
No, don't go watch the new Transformers movie. What's the Transformers movie more recent at the time? I think it was Age of Extinction, I think.
You just know that if it came out a couple of years later, he would have incorporated these I don't want to see the Ghostbusters 2016.
So there you go. Everybody wants them to review E.T. E.T. Yeah, just review E.T. already, James. Come on. Anyway, yeah. To go on with what that. I'm sorry, James.
Why are they doing the conga?
I don't know.
I was kind of groaning at the whole build-up to the E.T. thing, but I guess I might as well point out, I think if I recall correctly, Age of Extinction was one of the better live-action Transformers movies.
Sure. I kind of didn't mind that movie as much. But the point is, to go off of what Deji was saying, yes, keep in mind, right, and this is not something that I'm pulling out of my ass, because James Rolfe himself has even said this back in the old days, that the AVGN is supposed to be the kind of the butt of the joke. He's supposed to be a loser who can't get over the fact that these games from his childhood suck. Which is fine. That was always meant to be the gag, he's supposed to be a clown in essence. That's kind of the whole point of the character. But like Jova said, in this movie, that's not really how this movie portrays him as. They portray him as they basically, for all intents and purposes, the AVGN in this movie is a fucking god that everybody worships.
And honestly, the fact that one of the plot points is he doesn't want to review E.T., the reasoning for it in this story is baffling at best and feels incredibly self-indulgent at worst.
Mm-hmm. This is the major problem with this movie. The movie doesn't understand the nerd character. Like, And yeah, everybody, this is basically it. Now the plot of this movie, Dwibs, is a road trip to prove for once and for all that the AT landfill didn't happen, so that the fans can. And he's doing this for his fans, so that his fans can stop telling him to review ET and shit like that.
I've seen the Nostalgia Critic video on the movie.
Same.
Oh, sure. Yeah, what
Again,
Theo
I'm
just
pretty
said.
sure I'm the only one who hasn't seen this movie yet.
Trust me, Theo. I wanted to love this movie. I assure you.
No, okay. The thing that baffles me the most to me is that again, the sketches of the AVGN mostly work to me because they were complementary of the review itself, meaning also of the footage. Like him beating the shit out of Bugs Bunny was not just for that itself, but because he was reviewing games about that, something similar to that.
Yeah.
And that didn't even work 100% of the time. Just making an entire movie based on that without too much, with only a very thin connective layer to it. I don't know. I don't know how much of your fan base you want to captivate, because again, for comparison,
See, look at this. I'm sorry, Taylor, I'm gonna interrupt you here. Look at this. Everybody, ask for autograph.
You know, I'm surprised that every time the nerd shows up, there's not a choir singing his name.
Yeah, this is another thing. This is starting to seem a bit self-masturbatory to me. I mean...
And the weird thing is, I don't recall ever having a sense that James was this egotistical, especially in regards to the nerd character.
Oh, by the way, that woman with glasses that you just saw there in the background, that's James's wife making a cameo.
Okay.
So hot women are into loser nerds?
More likely than you think.
Hey guys, looks like all of us just jumped to the top of the sexual food chain right now.
Wow, I wonder why this movie was considered bad.
Okay. Like I mentioned, this kind of humor was already it wasn't completely to the point of being considered passé, but it was getting there by the time of 2014. Again,
I mean, this was still during the Hangover era, right?
I think so, yes.
Kinda. Okay, so... Okay, the Caustic Critic era kind of, again, evolved into two different forms. You got your players like Scott the Woz, who kind of have a bit of an evolved take of essentially the what a character guy, but still being able to more or less cover their source material with some skits there. And then you got more eloquently put together stuff like the video essay, essentially.
Let me just mention this. So yeah, Mandy is trying to pitch the whole idea of the nerd reviewing their new sequel to ET, because that would be a great marketing move to get people to buy the game. And she disguised herself as a nerd who plays video games. and guess what, Theo? If you remember how we talked about, how it's not nice to have positive portrayal of a gaming girl in. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks,
James.
Gross out humor was a thing of the video game nerds.
Yeah,
I really shouldn't be eating.
I think the problem is that the joke. Okay, so here's the thing. There was, yes. However, I think in the earlier videos it was better timed. That joke didn't have the proper comedic timing to make it work, because, like Tara said various times, you can make a joke out of anything work, even a corpse. You just have to do it well, and that joke wasn't particularly well timed. Like, for example, let me talk about the Friday the 13th review, for example, to give an example. In the Friday the 13th review, there's a bit where, so what do we do with the cartridge? I said we take a shit on it. Good. Empty your ass all over it. Bombs away. So, yes, it was him taking a dump on the cartridge, but it wasn't just, he's shitting on the cartridge. No, it was a direct consequence of the context prior to that moment. So the joke, like Theo said earlier, complemented the review.
If I may, I feel like possibly the best modern take on stuff like the Angry Video Nerd is, again, stuff like Scott the Woz, essentially, where he
or Icarus, for that matter.
Yeah, you know what? Even Angriest. Some people are split on his newer reviewing style, but okay, in terms...
That's just the format. In terms of actually reviewing properly the products, you didn't take one singular beat all over it. It's still technically the same.
Oh, boy, this kid looks nothing like James, but, you know, child actors and all that.
Whatever.
It's fine. I don't think it's a
Small
huge
potatoes.
problem.
But get it, even as a nerd, he had crayons.
And look at that, guys. The backstory of why he went apparently E.T.
E.T.
So yeah, apparently he was given the game as a child.
So, here's one thing I have to ask, though, like...
With a
E.T. with a mustache.
What?
Go on, Jova.
So, you know, the fact that they literally have to go for copyright-friendly stuff here, does it really
That's
truly...
fair.
No,
That's
hold
fair.
on.
I don't mind that.
No, I get that. But here's my question, though. The plot of this movie is about how people have always wanted him to review E.T., but if it's, you know, not actually E.T. due to the whole copyright stuff... God, that's terrible.
What the fuck?
Oh, Jesus, that really did look terrible. But my point is, like, well, doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose of supposedly giving the people what they want if it's... well, you know, not what they want.
There you go, Jova. Yes, I would have far preferred an actual proper review on the show itself than this, to be honest with you.
This again goes.
No, go on.
This goes into another issue with James here. I feel like he very desperately at times misses the point of what his fans are asking for. For example, if you probably are aware, a lot of people are not too fond of his modern episodes written by Screenwave. His reasoning is like, hey, if it weren't for Screenwave, I wouldn't be able to get all these episodes out. But most people counteract that with, they didn't necessarily want episodes like that in the first place, which I feel, again, tarkens back to this, and now he misses the point of why people wanted an ET review.
All right, 1 point for one funny line.
Kudos.
My dreams are low budget.
Sorry, then, Phil. Also, how many fake out from a nightmare are we
Wait,
having?
hang on. He has to versions of E.T. and that, but you can have the Atari logo.
I guess he managed to get permission for that one. I don't know.
You know, with the labels grappling that fence link chain, I thought it was gonna make a Terminator 2 reference and the thing exploding and turning into a skeleton.
Yeah, it's because you're going to see a lot of throwbacks to old sci-fi B movies.
Sure. Go on, sorry.
This will lead into another issue with this movie here. Because, yes, now suddenly we have zombies. Okay.
Oh, isn't this another nightmare he's having?
This is a dream sequence, yeah.
That being said, remember, let's think about the context of this scene. The nerd is having a dream about how his fans are mindless zombies, going towards him because they love him. Not sure what to think about that.
Okay, from the research I've done on this
movie... That was
movie...
a cameo from him, James?
Yeah, a bit ago, yeah.
Okay, yeah. From the research I've done on this movie, James really wanted to include a scene with zombies. He really wanted to include a lot of scenes of, well, a lot of things, which I do think is one of the issues of this movie here. He threw in literally everything he wanted to, regardless of how shoehorned in it would feel.
Okay, are we good this time?
I have a question. What the fuck was the point of that?
Again, well,
I just go through an existential crisis.
Again, well, okay.
I have to save the fans.
Okay.
Go on.
If you're asking for the point in the story of the movie, it's to establish his main goal of needing to save the fans. And by that, he means, I guess, prevent anything from getting this E.T. review about. So basically, it's his way of saying he's saving his fans by not reviewing E.T. That being said, though...
The nerd is such an awesome guy. He will do everything for the fans.
That being said, the actual reason it's in the movie, James really just wanted a scene with zombies.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. He has gone on to state stuff like that. Which is, again, one of the issues of this movie here. Like, oh wait, hold on this bit.
I do like this joke, actually. Yeah. On Cooper's side, the graphics look more, but on the nerd side they look pixelated. That's a nice
Cute,
touch.
so-
I'll give it that.
You know, this movie would be better if it was about James being internet famous. However, in the real world, no one gives a shit about him.
You know,
And
if
he's
this
struck
were,
that.
you know,
Exactly.
if this were Cadicarus, the movie, you know, there was anything Cadices would be like PS1 graphics.
Like Dylan the Night Owl mentioned in his retrospective of the AVGN, wouldn't it make a lot more sense for the nerd to be an anti-hero? Because in here
All
they
the time he's
portray him.
portrayed as an asshole, so
Yeah, exactly. So, and yet for some reason, this nerd is incredibly noble. But if you see the nerd videos, the nerd's characterization, or at least the original one, is that he's a dick. Like, he beats the crap out of people who come into his house and shit like that. That's the whole thing. Like, the nerd is an angry motherfucker.
Oh,
okay, like that.
Sure. But yeah, no, what Deji said, yeah.
Also, regarding how making just a review properly OTT on the channel, I get the idea that the material he would have had to work with, he deemed it not sufficient enough for just a proper video, so he'd rather would have had just incorporate that into the movie. I don't know, I'm just thinking of a thought process, because again, if you really get down to, for as much as a terrible piece of shit the game is, there's really not much to say about it, I'd say.
The problem is that when we do get to the actual review, by AVGN review standards, it's...
Yeah, it's gonna be poor, yes.
Yeah. So again, and keep in mind, he's making a whole movie more or less centered around that.
Hey, guys, the first questionable joke is coming in a minute.
First, I'm pretty sure we've had a few already. But
Well-
yeah, no, this bit.
Get it? She's a gamer girl because she has glasses.
So, I just want to point something out. James has gotten to the point where a big corporation is sponsoring him and everything. Why was he working at a dead-end job that he clearly hated when he literally has his pick of the litter with companies
Yeah,
apparently
you
chomping
think-
at the bit to hire him? Again, this
Yeah.
it feels like we're looking at two different plots here. There's
Hold on, Joe. I have to interrupt you here so we can listen to this line.
Okay, yeah, no. Okay, yeah, no.
We haven't
what does that even
SCWRM.
mean?
Oh, okay. Look. I know I said some of the humor was waning already by 2014, but no, by 2014, the whole girls can't be gamers joke. Yeah, no, that was dead and in the ground, buried more than the ET cartridges. Like, no, I'm sorry. Like, Channel Awesome literally had several girls who were gamers on them. Prominent content creators were gamer girls. Okay.
Basically, for context, real quick, Jova. Earlier we talked over it, but earlier, the nerd was telling Cooper what are the main things you need to be a nerd, and one of them is no girls, which is why the nerd has a trouble bringing this girl along.
Okay, again, this is the kind of stereotype that Scott the Woz parodies, but obviously doesn't take seriously. But here,
She's not a girl;
no,
she's a gamer.
but-
You think the nerd has a book on his shelf called "Why Woman Deserves Less"?
anyway, okay. Like,
Yeah, go on, Shova.
let me go back to my original point here. Again, the angry video game nerd came from an era where this kind of edgy humor was all the rage, and that's what was definitely... Well, okay, it wasn't really necessarily the reason people were attracted to it, but people were a lot more okay with it back in that day. Again, here's the issue. Whereas a lot of content creators changed, and again, in some cases, some people argue changed too much, James' problem is that he changed too little, if at all. Again, I get it. Your specific brand of humor, and I can get even maybe being a little bit risque here, but god damn, there was like no filter on it, and it kind of makes this embarrassing to watch in hindsight. Yes,
fun fact
Dej?
about this movie.
Yes.
This script was written in 2008.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, I am aware.
This-
In fact, I guess...
Let me face it. It technically was written in 2006. It got some rewrites in 2008.
You know,
Yeah, so it was outdated.
you know the
So
sad
this is a
thing.
2008 script.
You know, the sad thing is time's kind of a flat circle because a similar thing happened when Cinemassacre partnered with
I'm
Screen.
sorry, Joe, I have to comment on this. You are a stupid villain. You're literally having a Skype call with your evil boss right here where they can perfectly hear it. How stupid are you?
Is he the villain?
Well, I mean, they're asleep.
Even still, don't you think it's a bit too risky? They can wake up.
Well, do they?
Well, apparently they didn't wake
No,
up,
don't-
so
Well, no, they don't do this. But like from a logical perspective, she's doing. Why not just leave the van to do this?
Or use a pair of ear, like at least headset.
Yeah.
right, no, like okay, it's funny we mentioned the whole him taking scripts some old times because that same thing happened with the Cinemassacre reboot of Monster Madness. Basically, long story short, Screenwave kinda got accused of plagiarism, which turned out to be the case when they were essentially rebooting James's Monster Madness show. Then it turned out it was revealed that they were taking scripts of James's from 10 years ago. The thing is, this all went past James just fine, essentially. And yes, it did turn into a big mess, long story short. Honestly, yeah, for good reason, Cinemassacre as a whole has been getting some backlash. Now, is some of it overblown? Yes. But a lot of it is legitimate. The problem is, unfortunately, they kind of put all criticism under a blanket term of, well, haters gonna hate, essentially. Which, I have said it before and I'll say it again, that is never a good thing to do. What you want to do is specify at the very least.
You also noticed, Webbs, that Mandy has an Atari shirt, so I guess James was able to get permission for this particular brand, I guess?
From what I
guess.
understand,
You have to understand that by the time this was made, Atari, which is Infogrames with a new name, did not really have that much money or power, so they probably wanted every publicity they could get.
from what
Alright, this is our villain. Well, other villain, but yeah.
main
So
villain,
here's
if I
a-
understand
here's a-
correctly.
Here's our villain, bald guy.
Yes. You know, and yeah, to expand upon what Theo said earlier, you know what? This is totally what I wanted to see in an AVGN movie. Corporate douchebags trying to, I guess, stop the nerd from finding ET. Like, and
I mean,
again,
These guys seem more military than corporate.
Yeah, they're facing a big threat like Satan or something like that. It was common in the videos and everything, but
yeah.
I don't know. This feels more local than anything. Let me put it in perspective. It's like if Captain Marvel's Shazam started out with something big like Solaris, and then the next opponent was Doctor Savannah. And for the record, in case you don't know, Dibs, in the comic he's kind of a wimp.
Oh, don't worry, Tio. James has you covered there, for better or for worse. Which leads me to another issue here.
Oh, and I guess he's Professor X.
Yep.
His bottom half's a tank, essentially. He's that much
Because
of a
that's
military.
what they want to be reminded of. Kenneth Branagh in Wild Wild West.
Okay, let me put it like this. Another issue is that there is a ton of conflict in this movie. Perhaps a little too much. Again, if it's really a case of James stuffing everything he ever wanted in a film into a film.
Huh? Why are we having a visual representation of that?
Because it's
And
funny,
why-
supposedly.
What is this tangent?
And why are we talking about whether or not the world is flat? What does that got to do with anything?
Right. See, I think I get it. He's trying because he's one of the believers of the game cartridges are underneath the landfill thing, and he's like, "Nah, I don't believe you." You probably think all this other
Okay.
stuff's true.
You know, again.
This character's name coming up.
Okay.
Death One.
Okay, yeah.
What? 6? What does that even mean?
You know, even the people on the crew have trouble pronouncing that name.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. If this is following the AVGN show and universe, then AVGN should be aware that weird, bizarre stuff happens. Need I remind you guys of Jesus Mecha Tank Christ?
Yeah.
And that's another problem with this movie. It's not clear on if it's a continuation of the series, if it's an alternate take on the series. Like, now keep in mind, the series is still a factor since people are fans of the angry video game nerd and whatnot.
So basically, Tio, this movie is basically copying the plot of the Pandorica Opens.
Wow.
Great.
Giant sandwich.
You know,
Doctor Who episode.
okay, here's the issue, honestly. Why do some of these
Not
visuals
even
just...
Bologna, and that's not even how it's called.
The issue is that some of these visuals just appear in the sky. And, again, let me take you back to one of my main issues with this movie. When I first saw bits of it, I legit had no idea this was like a Hollywood-scale production because the way it's shot really does feel like an internet movie, which, again, by internet movie standards, this is impressive. But by Hollywood standards, this feels amateurish, I'm sorry.
This line is
Oh, great!
how should I put this? Oh, don't worry, Tim. It's about getting worse, actually.
That feeling when Neil Breen did a better job on the theme than you. I like that.
Hold on, Tail, listen. Hold on. What? It's funny because she's not wearing panties, I guess. I don't...
Oh, I
What is-
think I get the main character of the villain. He keeps having accidents all the time, hence why he's in that.
Right.
Yeah, basically the main general guy is called General Dark Onward, and the sergeant is called Sergeant McButter.
Okay.
What the fuck? Hey Jova, that's like a bad a bad version of the whole "you mess with New York, you mess with all of us" from Spider-Man.
Oh, so is that
Nope, just his arm got blown off.
This is only a scratch.
A scratch your arms off.
No, it isn't.
Look.
That's what it stands for.
Okay. And now Mandy's driving away to save us from Dark Onward, and this is now a chase sequence. Like. Oh.
Get it?
Yeah, that's another thing
Oh,
about this
boy.
movie. The way the movie handles the female characters is
Are you
questionable.
telling me that James can't write woman?
Okay, like I said, the era he became popular in, this kind of humor might have flown, not that that makes it okay, but like I said, James's issue, he did not evolve with time, and dear lord does it show in this movie.
I want to okay, this is also where those context videos that I showed before now come up. Because one of the primary defenses I've heard from this movie is that this movie was made to be bad on purpose. and
No,
criticizing it like me.
no. We're
Well,
not doing that.
Don't get me wrong, Dej. I agree with you, but let me just finish first. Yeah, a lot of people say that this movie was made to be bad on purpose, and that criticizing it the way we're doing it right now is missing the point. Okay, fine. Let's play that game. But I agree with you, Dej, but for the sake of that, let's just play that game. Okay, so if this movie is just supposed to be a nonsensical mess that is rarely funny, then I have to wonder, why am I watching this then? Like, because don't get me wrong, I understand. I'm okay with the plot being ridiculous because because a lot of comedies have plots that are ridiculous. That's fine. The thing is, if you're going to rely purely and exclusively on the humor and the wacky slapstick to carry your movie, then that humor has to be really well executed if it's the only thing that's carrying your movie. And so far, while we had the occasional funny line here and there, most of it is just confusing at best and questionable at worst, like we saw.
If I may, what it seems like he's trying to do is capture the essence of the ever-elusive B-movie tier quality. Except
that's obvious. I agree.
That being said, though, and I cannot stress it enough, there is an art to intentionally making bad movies. An art that seems to have been
Neil
lost
Breen.
to time.
Yeah, Neil Breen.
Except for
Again,
rare cases
Neil-
like Neil Breen.
Neil Breen has this magic where he's just doing what he likes, doesn't listen to anyone, and he still manages to go exactly like people want.
And not to mention, Jova, this is also where the Inside Look video that I showed comes up. Here's my biggest counterpoint to the whole "this movie is supposed to be bad on purpose." Remember what James said. Remember what James said about his ambitions for the movie. That this movie was meant to be like a big thing for the fans, and it was going to pave the way for other independent filmmakers to also make their own movies. So I'm sorry. When I look at what James was saying before the movie released, I never really got in any way the feel that this was supposed to be a movie that's being made to be bad on purpose. To be so no, I'm sorry. I just don't really.
Okay.
Go ahead, Edge. You can talk about that since you wanted to. Go on.
No, it's just that I hate the whole, it was made to be bad on purpose. No, that's a stupid excuse. Now you see, if you were to say this,
so later on.
Hold on,
now if you were to say it's meant to be something cheesy, like a cheesy B movie, that's fine. But most cheesy B movies aren't meant to be bad. Hell, I mean, if we want to be technical,
I recall the reference.
JoJo is basically cheesy, but it's still good.
Doris brought up an example. The Room is hilarious, and it's a bad movie, but it wasn't meant to be bad on purpose. We know that Tommy Wiseau, that was not his intention at all. He now tries to claim that it was.
Yeah, well, that's a reference.
Yeah, Mario. You wanted to say something, Dips?
That's basically it. Tommy Wiseau in the future tried to say, "Oh no, it was always meant to be a comedy," and like virtually one person believed it, that being Tommy Wiseau.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, if I may, Neil Breen has managed to get this, so even I'm willing to think that
Tom Green?
No, Neil Breen.
No, he means Neil Breen, the guy who made Fateful Findings. Dej.
Okay.
And okay, here's the thing about Tom Green. Yes, he set out to make a movie and certainly succeeded. The difference is that movie isn't even really entertaining for how bad it is. It is definitely something to behold, yes, but that doesn't mean people think of it positively. Conversely, what Neil Breen does have are bad movies, but they are movies that people regard positively because they are legit entertaining. Like, let me put it like this, Dids. Neil Breen has enough clout that one of his movies literally could just take the piss out of the MCU with him saying, Neil Breen will return, essentially confirming a cinematic Breenverse, and people were A-okay with that.
As for the whole experience of the movie itself, most of it is just boring.
Yeah,
like
I think that's like I said before. The strength of watching the nerd doing stuff to me was only because it was complimentary of the actual review. If you remove that, there's not much.
No.
Again, I haven't seen the Atop the Fourth Wall movie. I've heard.
I was about okay. That's one thing that I wanted to say before. I'll just do just to answer your question like that, Jova. It's not technically it doesn't contain any review because it's basically an extension of the storyline segment.
Of
and
course.
It's just an excuse for Linkara and other people like Angry Joes to fuck around a bit, But that's, that is actually as a foundation of that, because the storyline skits were already a thing present. Sure, you can say that it's still alienate part of the fan base, but at least there's still a conceivable part of that would probably be interested in that. With this, when it comes to this movie inside with James, like he said, I don't know if there's any much people that would be interested to see this without, an actual review properly interspersed in between to complement and just seeing this weird storyline with bizarre writing.
That's a good segue, actually. It's like, see, again, like I mentioned, James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, had a very, very specific formula. It was a formula that worked, but it's also one that has to be taken into consideration. A combination of him reviewing the game while also having skits of stuff here and there. Now, chances are people may not have liked the skits or the reviewing segments as much one of the other, but for the most part, they gel together. So the issue comes when you decide to, emphasize one over the other, because when you get down to it, if this movie is to be believed is mainly about him reviewing E.T., then this is a review with an over hour-long skit attached to it, which, again, can be iffy here. I'll give Linkara credit. I am sort of off and on with following his storyline stuff, but he seems to have acknowledged that to the point where he pretty much now has, whole playlists or essentially compilation videos here.
Ignore the movie if you want anyway. If you were just there for the review, you just want to watch the show for the reviews.
Just to recap the plot real quick. Basically, they just found Dr. Zender, who tells them that ET's level design is an exact map of Area 51.
Oh.
Yes.
Dr. Zender. So basically, there's a big conspiracy on what happened with the ET landfill.
For reference, audience, this was also before the quote-unquote attempt at the Area 51 raid.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would like to also bring up that will also set up some of the stuff we're going to talk about after this is how the shooting process began. Remember when I showed you those little bits that showed that James sucks at organizing in shit? This is where apparently and according to some of the extras from the movie who have since, came out and said some stuff about it. There was a lot of incompetence on set, and even James's official timeline of the product, which is posted on the Cinemassacre website at the time, kind of illustrates that. Check it, link in the description, everybody, so you can read it along with us. Okay, check this out, guys. April 1st. Wow, you're going to start shooting in April 1st. That's probably what jinxed this guy. So there you go, guys. This movie's a joke. There you go. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Okay, April 1st, 2012. Shooting begins. Residential location. Electrical problems. Almost didn't get all the shots. Then start. Amusement park location. Park shut down early. Barely made our shots.
Oops.
There's another one, Shack scene card. There's a prep and set for location. Nature strikes. Our most daunting shoot of all at a desert location got rained on. The location at an abandoned mining property was flooded, so the shoot had to be postponed to the very end of the schedule. Hundreds of background actors had to be rescheduled, and certain flights needed to be rebooked. And this also ties into the main point that Jova was bringing up earlier. James should have just made this movie a smaller project made in his hometown where he would have been able to do things a lot better because
I'm starting to be reminded of something, Pedro. Well, not completely equal, but it reminds me of the fact that one of the problems that ballooned also the budget of Lady in the Water was that Shyamalan insisted on filming on the place that he wanted and literally built the condominium as a set instead of actually filming.
Yeah, basically, there's a reason why a lot of even big-scale film productions film in places like Canada or here in Britain, for example, because us in Canada, especially, I don't know about Canada exactly, But we give a lot of incentives to big Hollywood filmmakers to make their stuff here.
Also Eastern Europe. All Eastern Europe is very cheap to film.
I just want you all to keep in mind as well, it isn't even about if he had to shoot at his house. Like, okay, if he wanted, like, all the film tech and whatnot, there are other studios in America aside from Hollywood that he could have filmed it. Again, he chose the big one.
Wait, so they have cameras in Dr. Xandor's house?
Well,
so let me get this straight. These people are after Dr. Xandor.
They know where he is.
But they know where he is because they have cameras in his house for some reason.
Okay, I'm going to infer the reason they have cameras on him is because, again, he is a scientist who used to work for the government. My guess is they were keeping tabs on him in case he made a development, especially since he was keeping himself secluded in that house in the desert, so might as well have been a prison. Again, that's my best bet here, and I'm getting to the point where I have to play writer for James, but
that's the thing, Joe. But Dr. Xander said that he's hiding from these people, from the military. Like, that's the thing. He said he's hiding
I feel
from
like
them.
I missed something. How are they able to find the guy anyway?
They found him by accident, basically.
Maybe they
just ended up in his house. Okay.
Yeah, you see, this is that plot hole that I just pointed out, everybody. This is also combined with the whole thing about the nerd being super popular and somehow still having to work at Game Cops that Joe pointed out. This also becomes very apparent that when Kevin Finn and James Rolfe wrote this, they didn't actually properly think about what they were writing. Which, again, like I said, I understand that this is supposed. See, like I said before, I want to emphasize this again. If the plot being nonsensical wouldn't be a problem if the movie was funny.
Okay, let me put
most of the time it's just boring or, like I said, questionable.
Okay, I think a good comparison would be to something like Kung Fury. Kung Fury is more or less a pastiche of 80s film media. It is incredibly nonsensical and pretty stupid. See, the difference, though, is that the movie knows it's stupid. It flows with that. The problem with this movie is that, at times, it takes itself way too seriously to the point where it feels like, okay, sure, yeah, you can say, oh, it's supposed to be a B movie or whatnot, but again, certain aspects are taken too seriously. Now, I'm not talking about stuff like the military stuff, like, sure, that's over the top. But there's stuff like how the nerd apparently needs to save his fans from E.T. and whatnot. That stuff is played way
I just realized
serious.
something, Joe, by the way.
Yes?
I just realized something, Joe, by the way. Did you notice how James just had a line? Yeah, we spent like a full, 10 minutes or so without James even doing or saying anything in his own fucking movie, didn't we? Because we're just listening to this guy exposit shit that we don't give a crap about.
Which, again, is part of the issue. James stuffs a lot into this movie that, again, some stuff has to be prepped for. And believe it or
this movie
not...
didn't need to be 2 hours long. How long is the Top the Fourth Wall movie?
I forgot, but I think around an hour and a half. Since I watched it. Let me check.
Oh, this bit.
Don't tell me they're trying to build the romance between these two.
Yes.
Of course. Gotta need it, I guess.
Basically, Mandy's gonna try to, I guess, seduce James or something.
Oh my god!
How will innocent gamers suffer from that, James? Oh, sorry, nerd, because remember, technically this is the nerd character, not James himself.
I mean, it's still. I mean, okay, unless unless whoever's behind this is forcing them at gunpoint to buy it, then no.
Yeah, see, the thing is, everybody, one of the big appeals of AVGN was the cozy atmosphere of the nerd's room. Of course. Hold on. Wait for the punchline.
Let me guess, he's playing a video game.
Probably.
Very good. Very good. Ah, look at that. A reference to the NES Accessories episode.
I must be a wizard.
Too bad it only makes me wish I was watching that episode instead, because it's a really good one.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'll be honest. So far, okay, I've seen a couple of recent AVGN episodes, like that Doom one he did. Honestly, I enjoyed that more than I'm enjoying this.
Okay.
Well, I guess that worked for Deji then.
No, I'm just laughing at how long they stretched the joke out. And I thought that was like, yeah, that's funny.
Look, guys, Cooper's like, wait, he's getting along with a girl. Nerds don't get along with girls.
How old was James at this point?
He was
Like
married,
30?
I believe.
Yeah, he was already married. He's like in 30, I think, around there.
Married and had a kid at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh? Oh boy.
I literally just said no.
Well, she was breaking up, so it sounded like she
very
said,
cool,
do
yeah.
go to the landfill. Guess what, guys? We're setting up a liar reveal plot.
Okay, in this case, it's more of a misunderstanding properly rather than, her just...
The problem is that it's treated like a liar revealed plot.
Well, technically, Tail, it is, because remember, she's lying to both Cooper and the nerd about, about not being, about the whole, thing. So technically, it is a liar reveal thing. But let me just mention something. Like I was saying, the cozy atmosphere of the nerd episodes, that's why, like we have said, even the new videos are still better than this, because at the very least, we still have the cozy atmosphere aspect to it. This movie, on the other hand, is this big government conspiracy military bullshit that has nothing to do with what we care about the AVGN, and it's just like... It's so... See, the main reason why we're not commenting that much on the plot is because do you really give a shit about the plot, really? It's nothing but nonsense. And
Okay,
it's just unfunny.
For the sake of fairness, let's try and pay attention to the plot and give it its fair dues.
Sure.
Look, again,
a what movie? No panties joke? I'm so disappointed. Like... Go on.
It's like, don't get me wrong, like, I get it, sometimes it can be tough to comment in on something, but it's like, the last thing you need is to miss something, and then, of course, you got someone who's gonna point out why the criticism is wrong because of it.
Yeah, listen, I thought she was a girl. I thought she was a gamer, not a girl. But turns out she's a secret agent, because apparently you can't be all those three things at once.
Again, how connected is this to the main AVGN series? Because he deals with all this weird crap in the regular series, so this shouldn't be too out there. Again, unless they're going...
Okay. And now, there you go. This is the reveal part of Sad Liar Reveal. So check this out.
At least we're doing this early.
Halfway through the film.
Cooper just noticed something about her glasses. Listen to this. It takes a while.
Okay.
Camera for the shower, you creep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, give it
hold on.
Not for nothing, but people use fake glasses for a plethora of reasons as opposed to just looking nerdy.
Remember back when the stereotype was with nerd were wearing glasses and on a Rick and Morty shirt? Yeah.
Also, that joke you just made, like figures, when you share your joystick with a girl, they break it.
Funny?
Funny? Yeah, I know. Right? That's the big problem. That's the big problem. This movie's just not funny. It's just confusing.
In the
and
interest,
weird and...
in the interest of good taste, I'm doing my best to refrain from using the word cringe.
In fact, the guy playing the nerd's sidekick in this film,
Jeremy Suarez.
In the past, before this, he was in such classics as The Land Before Time 8, The Big Freeze. Jerry Maguire as well before that. Also, he was in Deleted Scenes from Treasure Planet, the voice of Coda in Brother Bear and its sequel. And
so Coda became the nerd's best buddy?
Wait.
Yes.
So you're telling me that this Cooper guy is actually a legit Hollywood actor?
Yeah, he is, Joe.
I mean, he hasn't, at least on Wikipedia, he hasn't been in anything since 2017. But let me see. Okay, he's been in like a couple of other things, but they were just both in 2020. Although there is this upcoming thing called MD is for Mr. Dola.
So, question. Would you say this is a step up or a step down from Brother Bear?
I'm sorry, no. No matter what you say about Brother Bear is a much better movie than this. Come on.
I agree. Get bored by it, but I would rather watch that than this. At least that one has good animation.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, you kind of expect that from them. As for me, I mean, both so far, aside from the weird jokes, this film and Brother Bear are both having the exact same amount of impact on me.
I will say this. Yeah, that's
barely any.
Ew.
Was that a pun?
God damn it, Twins.
That wasn't intentional.
Right.
Also, okay.
Wow.
You know what's something that's bothering me about this movie right now?
Do tell.
I'm being reminded of people who tried storming Area 51.
And I'm going to remind
this was around that time, Dej.
And I'm going to remind
No. This came out in 2014.
No. Go let him finish. Go on.
This came out in 2014. The Area 51 thing came out was in 2019, 2020.
Actually, Dej, what I mean is that people were trying to storm Area 51 even around the 2014s.
Oh,
you should check out
Kyle Justin and Mike Matei.
Cool.
Characters we actually care about from the show, and they're gone.
Anyway,
I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that cameo.
It's like that bit in. Okay, I'm not going to say it's as bad as Biodome, but it is like that scene in Biodome where where Tenacious D were on screen for like a minute.
Yeah, College Justin. I'm going to remind everybody, this movie was crowdfunded. So, I can only imagine what a lot of fans who funded this movie, when they finally got the final product, and they're like,
And the thing is, now I know what you're thinking. This feels like we're getting close to the climax, the big point where he reviews it. Yeah, no, we're barely past the halfway point.
This movie is still going, yeah. And keep in mind, everybody, this movie was entirely crowdfunded and entirely produced by James's Cinemassacre company. This movie had zero interference from any kind of executives. This movie is James Rolfe and Kevin Finn's unfiltered vision, exactly as they intended. So, and yet, if you ask me, it's just as bad as your typical cash grab that doesn't understand the source material, to be honest with you.
By the way, the General never gets that wound patched, I guess, to show off the cool gore effects and whatnot, but...
Oh my god, it's the same casino that was in The Wizard.
Yep. I think it's a green screen bit. Yeah, I think it's a green screen bit from it, I guess.
OMG.
I don't...
Sorry, what was the point of that joke with the casino?
I don't even know, Jova.
We needed the runtime.
You see, Jova, usually when I get to this point in the movie, I'm just at a point where I just can't.
Well,
bring
again,
myself.
let me again reiterate. James put everything he wanted to in this movie, regardless of how little sense it made or how much it might break the pace.
Oh yeah, actually I haven't mentioned this bit yet. Actually, remember that timeline of shooting and how there was a lot of trouble on shooting and how a lot of the extras. Another thing that the extras who came out talking about how apparently there was a lot of incompetence on set. Apparently, one thing that they mentioned is apparently it got to a point where James kind of fled into the background and Kevin did most of the directing, apparently, because it got to a point where, again, apparently there was a very chaotic production.
I forgot, but didn't we had a movie where something similar happened, where the director was... No, I'm not talking about the Island Doctor, but something where the director was away for one reason or another, and someone else had to take over, like, for the proper directing scenes or something. I just think he had in the back of my brain something that we had covered in the past.
Well, I'm only saying that because I want to set things up for what we're going to talk about later.
Sure. I'm just saying that, I don't think it's a...
Sure.
Sorry.
Because when you take a look at all those notes about, we didn't have any time to make those shots, let's just say James gained a new enemy after making this movie, time itself. But we'll talk about that later. All right, so here's actually a fun bit. This guy is, yes, that's the creator of the ET video game, yes.
This is nothing too new. At one point, James managed to get the director of the original Toxic Avenger movie as a guest.
Oh, no, I go
Howard's... Go on.
Post-movie, he would get a lot of reviews that had celebrities in them.
My absolute favorite of that is the Pepsi Man review because he managed to get the actor who played the FMV in there. Yes, and then basically a Terminator 2 reference about the game. That's actually one of my favorite from the post-movie reviews.
As a reminder, Howard Scott Warshaw had to design that game on his own in like 5 weeks, which is why the game sucks so bad.
Keep in mind, though, according to this game's lore, technically that game was made as part of an Area 51 map project or something with Xandor.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Could have never taken that bit.
Oh my god.
If a lot of people love each other, the world would be a better place to live.
So...
my work here is done.
So I just want to point out that the big moral is that
Don't lie.
Yeah, that's the moral, Dwibs. Don't lie.
Which really does not connect with what this movie was starting off on, so... Yeah, this... Again, it feels like we're looking at two different plots that are not intertwining well.
Of course.
Meanwhile...
in Las Vegas.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Wow.
I've been talking about the questionable jokes involving women. We're about to get what is the more infamous one that people usually bring up when talking.
Also, she literally just dropped her gun because we needed some way to have a fair fight, I guess.
Because people would be asking, why don't you just shoot her?
Yeah.
Yeah, you focus on your drive.
This particular bit is interesting. I'll wait till the scene is over.
A married man.
What?
Huh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that was
yes,
funny.
yes, great. I'm not coming by. Yeah, I mean, she sold them out.
Well, why'd he say it like that? That was sure nerd.
Remember, Dad, he's called the angry video game nerd in universe, so he is basically saying that'll show her nerd, as in he was saying to the nerd that'll show her.
Remember, he's actually called the angry video game nerd. Oh god, this bit. Okay. So yeah, this is them discovering the nerd and even doing a mock Top Gun review video.
Okay, if I may, here's an issue I have with this. So he's called the angry video game nerd in story, but remember, the opening of this movie suggests that he films this stuff as well, so...
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense if, you know...
hold on, Jova. Then they're watching the super rad video game dude.
Oh god, this bit.
Is this taking the piss out of those?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, as some people have pointed out, the issue is that when you actually think about it, Super Rad doesn't really seem that different from Angry Video Game Nerd in terms of how they do it. And yet one's saying, oh, Angry Video Game Nerd is great, but this knockoff is terrible. And like, okay, not for nothing, like I mentioned, James inspired a lot of people. Again, he more or less kickstarted the era of the caustic critic stuff, so...
You know, it would have been funny if Irate Gamer was in this movie.
Okay, whether or not
what is
he...
even doing these days?
He came back to do Irate Gamer because he used to do toy reviews, but because of how YouTube's policy for kids' videos is like, I can't make money off this anymore.
Okay, go.
Yeah. It's like, you know... Whether or not James meant it, it really comes off like he is so full of himself.
Yeah. All right. So I want to address 2 points. One, according to James and other behind-the-scenes videos that we haven't watched, but you can still watch them on YouTube if you look for them. According to James, the whole thing, one of the big things regarding Mandy was that it was meant to be a subversion of the damsel in distress trope, which is why the nerd doesn't go to save her.
Okay.
Second, I want Dylan the Night Howl, who made the best retrospective of MVGN that on YouTube. I'd definitely recommend everybody watch that. He made a very good point in his segment where he reviews this movie. Wouldn't it be funnier if the villains actually preferred the rad video game dude over the AVGN?
I know, right?
Like it's weird because James is a good comedic writer. I don't understand what the hell happened here.
Well, there's a difference between writing a short film and a full-length feature film, so maybe that's why.
Also, some people have begun to argue if, while again, earlier AVGN episodes were funny, they do wonder if the real thing that made it work was the combination of him and Mike Matei writing for these as well.
Basically, for those who have not familiar with his Twitch streamer career, Mac Matei is now a Twitch streamer, and if you actually watch his Twitch streams, he acts a lot like the nerd, which got a lot of people to think that Mike Matei was the primary inspiration for the nerd character, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, question.
Actually.
Did we ever have any AVGN episodes that, you know, were written just by James before the Screenwave era?
That's the thing, Jova. Like before Mike left, it was mostly just him and James. When Screenwave took over, yes, Mike stopped writing for it. Yes, but which is why he eventually left in 2020 because James didn't really need him anymore. Because at that point, Screenwave was co-writing with him.
Well, that's why my question is like, well, did we ever get an episode of just James writing it, or like?
We don't know, Jova. That's the thing. There's never any credits on the episode saying who wrote what, so we don't know.
Okay, so my point is just, I do wonder if James was... Okay, no. James was definitely part of what helped the Angry Video Game Nerd work. I just wonder how much of the writing he did.
According to Mike Mate actually talked about it. Like, he helped with the writing.
Hey, wait, this is the ending to The Last of Us.
According to Mike Mate, because Mike Mate has actually said this himself on his streams, that it was a collaborative process between both him and James. So you can just, I guess you can, according to, if Mike is to be believed, Jova, a 50-50 ratio.
I guess.
Because that's the thing, Jova. Like, if it helps you, we have strong. We already know that James doesn't do much of the writing anymore for AVGN, which is why the humor in recent episodes is so different than how it was in the older episodes.
Great.
It's funny because it's a rectal scanner.
Was he just basing that off of the fact that Monsters vs. Aliens had that joke?
What the fuck?
Oh,
They want to
Vicine.
force him to play ET.
We're not so different, you and I.
I mean, might as well.
Well,
I mean,
he's a cartoon. He's a cartoony evil villain cliche, so I guess why not at this point?
I should mention I do have the subtitles on, so I can follow along properly.
Sure. I have them too.
Butch Barbie.
Butch Barbie.
Again, this idea that he's so popular that his fan base are that loyal that he is apparently influential enough to help somebody take over the world.
It's dumb. And like I said, yes, that would be fine if the movie was funny, but it's not.
You know, even by B-movie standards, this is an unbelievably dumb plan.
What's with the sexual tension there?
I don't
No
know.
idea.
Bitch.
They're building up to a... Well, you probably know what they might be building up to. I won't spoil the surprise. Ugh. Yes, in case you may have noticed, there are a lot of 80s films references. However, the thing is, 80s films references, not a lot of games references. Oh, sure, yeah, we had some bits like the Mario Pit bit, but honestly, you'd think this was more like the angry film nerd as opposed to the angry video game nerd with the references and whatnot.
Well, for those who don't remember, back in the day, James actually tried to expand upon the nerd career by having him also be called Angry Movie Nerd to review movies, and that's how he reviewed the third TMNT movie. However, he stopped doing that because it would be difficult to make money off of them because of the copyrighted footage he would put on the reviews.
Even doing that.
I have no idea what the plot is happening. What's the villain's plan?
Okay, basically the villain's
Go on.
The villain's plan is to have the angry video game nerd play E.T., which will allow them to essentially control the masses and more or less take over the world.
Oh, basically, by having the nerd play ET1, the word of mouth about it will drive up the sales of ET2, and they'll make more money out of it.
Yeah, what Webb said.
So they're just using it as a marketing ploy.
How sad is it, but it is exactly kind of what happened with Shaq Fu.
Okay, so here's here's the problem, though. One, wouldn't this make more sense if this had been like the plan of Cockburn? Because remember, as far as we knew, the military were a separate entity from Cockburn. No, because remember, Teal, the military were initially trying to stop them when they popped in, because remember, they didn't know who the nerd was beforehand.
No, I know that, but I thought that he's also a Cockburn.
No, they're separate entities, Teo. That's the thing. I have no fucking clue what the hell's even going on anymore, Teo. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
What I said is that both Cockburn and want the same thing, but they're pursuing in different ways.
But no.
Not in a sense that they are allied, but they're just two different entities that have the same goal.
They weren't, is the thing. Again, remember, the military were trying to stop them because they were trespassing as far as they knew prior.
Yeah. That's the thing, too. I wish I could help you, but by this point, I usually just...
Oh, God! And speaking of stuff that we're about to bring into the plot nonsensical, you remember...
That makes no sense.
Hey, guys, you remember that other plot detail we mentioned about that evil entity that's hiding beneath?
Mount Fuji.
Yes. He's going to summon Death 116.
Yeah, again, you remember too how I mentioned now you'd be covered with having this big epic thing? Well, at the last moment, Death 116 comes back into the plot.
And how he lost both of his arms.
I thought that was tinfoil.
Hey, look at that, guys. We also have bootleg ET. Again, or rather, or should I say, copyright-free ET coming up. There he is.
What the hell is this?
That's ET, Jova. Sorry, Dej.
Oh.
And by ET, I mean EET.
That's using the power of the game.
Bootleg ET.
Yeah, because again, we can't actually have ET, otherwise Universal would bankrupt Cinema Massacre 5 times over.
Look, there's a missile, okay.
Hey, yes, it's me, Discount Kermit the Frog here.
Who is he voiced by?
Let me see. E.T.
Robbie Wrist.
Oh, Elvis.
Elvis, Michael Jackson. Get it? All the stuff at Area 51 hides.
Oh, I just discovered something too from looking at the credits. Bear McCreary is also one of the zombies.
Huh. Yeah, no.
Yes, basically the alien is voiced. Yeah, the alien is voiced by Robbie Wrist, who for being in the Colangelo in the 90s live action movie.
He was Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch. Okay.
He's also Marauder in the Final Fantasy X games. He's in the English dub of Boruto was Choji Yakimichi. Oh, it's also in The Weekenders. Okay.
That guy hamming up at the camera should be at the very least fun, and yet somehow it isn't.
Okay.
That'd be some bit entertaining to me.
I think the problem is like, well, he's trying to play it up to be over the top, but it feels so fake.
I don't think he's a particularly good at it.
That or he was directed bad.
Oh, that's the way to open it.
Yes, in order to open everyone, you need an ET cartridge.
Like, seriously, this could have been the perfect joke to make a reference to Metal Gear on the NES. So.
Or maybe do something akin to the first Wreck-It Ralph movie where in order to open the secret...
Why not using the Konami code?
Okay, because...
That would make sense.
And the weird thing is, again, James is not the master of video games as some might think, because...
Yeah... Not to mention, Jova's correct, because Mike has actually said on his streams, in various chat questions, that most of the time it was actually Mike picking the games, because Mike, unlike James, is an actual gamer, and video games are his main hobby. And like we said, like Jova was saying, yeah, James is a filmmaker. Through and through, he likes video games, but only the video games from his childhood. He doesn't actually play video games nowadays. Like, there's even an interview out there.
He's sipping a martini with ET because,
to give you an idea,
He's sipping an E-martini.
E-martini, ha ha ha. Just to give you an idea, there's a recent interview out there where someone interviewed him. So, what game are you playing right now? Like, what games are you playing right now? Because I know maybe it changes. And he says, "Oh no, I don't really play any new games. Like, the only games I play are the ones in the videos, because I don't have any time to play games. Usually, when I have any free time, I'm just trying to watch a movie." So, yeah, James is not particularly interested in video games anymore. Like, it's not really his thing, which again is fine. That's perfectly fine. He doesn't have to. It's just that, without Mike Matei, because again, he's not really a gamer. So him being a video game reviewer becomes difficult when he doesn't have Mike there.
It has,
which is funny because there was a point. I remember I was in the middle of it. There was a point in time where people really didn't like Mike Matei for some reason.
Okay, Mike Matei is a whole basket of rotten eggs here.
Yeah, I can actually tell you what the reasons are.
That's the slowest missile ever. Between all that time that happens.
And
there you go.
Here's
okay, now, I want to be fair. Like, as someone who likes kaiju movies, yeah, I at the very least appreciate the attempt to try to create a good old-fashioned puppet kaiju, and the effects are and the effect looks fun. So I just wish he was in a movie where I actually gave a shit.
So it turns out Defmois is E.T.'s father.
Xenophobes? What the fuck are you talking about?
He was reviewing at the beginning a game called Xenophobe.
Oh, right. Sorry. Never mind. Ignore me. Oh, okay. Let me give you the basic rundown, Dwebs. Back in college, Mike Matei made a very racist comic with very racist depictions of Mexicans, and when that came to light, yeah, it was a bit of a controversy there. Second, there was also a thing, like a moment where there was an internet online that was posted by Mike Matei that was supposedly of his cock, because a lot of people were on the Cinemassacre Reddit were wondering from all of Mike's videos that apparently he had a big cock. No, I'm not kidding. By the way, this was a thing that happened.
I remember.
You can look this up.
Mike Matei also did not have the best demeanor and attitude, especially when criticism was involved.
Yeah,
What?
basically, he was also very bad at taking criticism. Like he would go
Why
on
are we having a
Cinemassacre
bunch
Reddit
of
and
hippies right now?
stop people from doing any criticism and shit like that. Go on.
Why did we have a bunch of hippies right at the screen?
I need to know how he was
Because-
able to get this tank. Maybe that's where the real budget
Funding.
went.
Remember that we saw that in one
well,
of the
actually-
early videos.
Yeah, we record according to James, the producer managed to get him a tank somehow.
This guy isn't a very good actor.
Okay.
He is not.
Again, I'm wondering if he's directed badly, because the thing is, the way he's acting now, that's different from how he was acting earlier in the
There's a
movie.
video,
Like,
but there was also the point where he was yelling and looking at the camera, which, if you know anything about the B-movie, it's a classic, bad actorial moment, because you should be never looking at the camera unless it's
Yeah.
a very specific moment.
See, this
I
is a
wonder
bit-
if they want to
Sorry.
reference that, and by extension, have his entire shtick being a bad.
Okay, so the guy playing the general is a guy named Stephen Mendel, and he's actually been in quite a few things. He's been in a lot of TV episodes. He's also done a lot of anime work, like Iron-Blooded Orphans, Ico Incarnation, which dub of it I don't know, and Record of Grand Crest War, Lupin the Third, Prisoner of the Past, NCIS Los Angeles. So he is an experienced veteran actor. So maybe he just he's got very bad direction.
Man, I had forgotten how long it takes to get to the. There you go.
Really?
Now we're gonna get the cat fight, and we're about to get what is Mandy's most infamous line from the movie.
and again,
Okay.
I
so
had forgotten how long it takes.
I love this though. Like, technically, McButter has her, but she just unties her for clout because we need a fight scene. Like, no,
Because she
keep in
provoked her, yeah.
keep
Look at
in
the whole
mind.
thing, oh, you can't take me on your own. Oh, you want to bet? Playing to the villain's ego. This is a cliche that we've seen a million times.
Here's the thing, though. Since she got tied up after, McButter chased her, doesn't that imply that McButter already defeated her anyway? So, why are we doing this again, then?
I will admit, yeah, this actually looks like something you would see from a Toho movie. Yeah.
And that's actually pretty good, a combination of practical and CGI.
Yeah. No, like I said, I actually do enjoy the kaiju stuff and some of the practical effects and stuff. I just wish they were put to better use.
I honestly, I kind of wish the whole movie.
Yeah, well,
Hey, I want to make a
kinda
kaiju.
wish terrible with it. Because again, that stuff did happen in the AVGN episode where randomly Satan will pop up and be big and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Why
I
isn't
think
this
the
Super
NES
Mega
Express-
Death?
I think the NES Accessory episode had something like that.
I have a question though. Why create this weird entity? Why not just make it Super Mega Death Christ?
Well,
I
okay.
guess you did not want
That
to
would
offend
be
religious
predictable.
people.
Okay, to be fair, from what I recall, Super Mega Death Christ isn't a villain, I believe. Well, not like an outright villain, I think. You are not as clever as you think you sound.
Yeah, that's the line that a lot of people like to quote from this movie that makes them go, ouch.
And again,
Yeah.
like, hey, girlie, you're the one who challenged her to the fight anyway. What are you complaining about?
I get that the movie's trying to be self-aware, but it's just cringy, like Jova said earlier. Considering Sergeant McButter is a military-trained person, you'd think she would take down Mandy easily.
Technically, it does seem like she is kicking her butt for most of the fight so far. And again, given how she was able to tie her up initially, I guess that assumes she won the first fight? God, is this another cameo or something?
I don't know. I actually don't know who this is. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, Classic joke. All right, point for one funny joke. Yeah, remember in the Top Gun review, like you have to do the controls in reverse. If it says up, you're supposed to pull the lever down.
Which again is kind of akin to how planes work.
Yeah,
It's
remember,
called inverted controls.
See, the joke in the Top Gun review, Jova, is that like you see the words "up" on screen, so your first instinct as a player is to press up. So it's a bit brain confusing.
But here he just decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna eject. Oh. Wow, hey, it's a miracle the plane turned into a toy before it crashed.
Yeah. Again, now, some argue that some of these more obvious bits are meant to, again, elicit that B-movie feel. I personally feel that they don't mesh well.
So why did you summon the kaiju?
Again, like I said, James wanted kaiju in it, so he added kaiju.
No, but yeah, I know that's what James did, but from the military guy's point of view, what was your plan?
Take over the world somehow.
What is going on?
At this point, Deji, the movie has completely gone insane at this point. Like, see, this is the thing about, you know what, might as well bring that up, actually, since, yeah. Okay, one of the things that I also used, because back in the day, I used to watch everything James did. Oh, yeah, kind of. yeah, oh, it is, shit pickle. There you go,
no, it's Pickle Rick.
Also, what's bullshit guy.
Yeah. Oh, God,
also,
bullshit,
the glitch
man.
scrambling for a second.
Can I talk about that, by the way?
Wow.
In the more recent, what's bullshit videos, they just say, what's BS. Like, to appease the algorithm and shit like that. Like, by removing the word bullshit, in my eyes, you've destroyed the whole point of that series, to be honest with you. But anyway, yeah, I want to talk about this as well. Like, this is the other thing. Oh, hold on.
Bye.
So,
oh, God.
All right. This is actually there you go.
That's a reference to
TMNT free. Yeah, that's a reference to TMNT free. Basically, if you don't know, everybody, in TMNT free, the villain falls, but the villain jump cuts out of existence before he can actually hit the water. So that's a reference to that. And remember, James reviewed that movie and he talked about that bit, so it's a specific reference to that.
Also, get it? He's got a chick magnet.
Yep. Chick magnet.
Oh my gosh, she turned into a doll. Okay, again, I do think one of the issues is that
he at least has his priorities straight, okay?
I will say this. I feel like James needed to pick one of the, I'm going to say 3 or 4 plots running in this movie and just stick with one. Like, and I get it. To him, this might have been his only chance to make a movie. I get it, when you feel like this is your only chance at the big shot, so you want to put in everything you can. Unfortunately.
Also, that was a stupid line.
You'll have to be more specific as to what was a stupid line.
No. I'm sorry, I thought you were a double agent. I'm not even a single agent. That line doesn't even make any sense.
He was like, wait, what?
The spaceship of E.T. was hidden inside the cartridges bit by bit.
Of course.
Okay, to be fair, this is actually classic type of AVGM moment where a cartridge it would be considered dead, rises from the ground.
Oh yeah,
like that.
Sure. In fact, we're almost there, guys. We are about to get the long-awaited ET review.
Yeah.
Oh hey,
Big
Hatsune.
Hatsune cosplay.
all of the ET cartridges in the world are gonna. Oh, there's
Hi, Doug.
Walker.
Hey, Doug.
Wow,
And
that actor was really good.
And that was
Here's
Doug.
the
Oh,
Foxy Avenger.
look who it is. James Gunn's Stan Lee type guy, like basically. Oh.
I don't know who these two people are.
I don't know either.
These two best friends play.
I don't think so.
No, that's not Matt and Pat.
All right, now we're about to get the long-awaited ET review.
Oh,
Wait.
yeah.
Also, Dej,
man.
you just said
How
Matt
sad
and
is that
Pat.
the last 20-25 minutes.
That's their names. One is Matt McMuscles and Pat Sarzat.
Has anyone ever made the obvious fusion joke?
Okay. Now, in terms of the review bit, I will. When we get to it, I'll say one bit for it that Nostalgia Critic brought up, and one bit against it.
Oh, and there E.T. goes.
Hi.
E.T.
Wait, why is it abducting?
But yeah, no, I think Dej raises up a good point. I think the movie may have forgotten to mention why exactly the General thought bringing Deaf Moi was a good idea.
Also, in certain shots, the general is a toy, of course. Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, this is how the villain is defeated.
He just drives off a cliff.
Indiana Jones 3 reference?
Poorly.
What a stupid movie this is.
Okay, look,
Yeah.
I get it. It's supposed to be an intentionally bad movie, but my God, at least have your villains go out in interesting manners. God, this dialogue.
And don't get me wrong, I understand. I personally am a person who is very good at managing my time. But at the same time, I understand that not everybody is. And that's fine. Here's the thing, though. If you're not particularly good with scheduling things and managing your time, again, hire a personal assistant who can do that for you. Plenty of people do that. Like, there are ways of fixing those problems. And yet, as we're going to see later after this, James doesn't seem to realize that.
The thing is, James is not your friend. He is essentially still... He is running a business of sorts centered around stuff that he is making money off of. So people are very much in their rights to critique him for this stuff.
Like everybody who runs a business is allowed.
What the fuck?
This line.
Get it, Tio? It's symbolism because we say it is.
For what? But No, that's some heavy-handed symbolism. Okay, symbolism of what exactly?
That it represents all his enemies that were in the movie.
I suppose the idea is that it goes back to his lesson in regards to it.
What? Hey, that's the Aegean team. Yeah, me too.
Bear McCreary was wasted on this.
And he fucks off because he became.
I guess the idea is that the laser turned him good?
Into a comedian?
A pretty bad one.
And there you go. There's ET2 right there. Wow, that was a climax.
But wait, guys, what about the real climax, where he finally does the review?
Gary, she still gets to be in an AVGN video.
Sort of.
I wish the lyrics were actually used in
God,
the movie.
the soundtrack is way too epic for this.
Bear McCreary is trying his freaking hardest.
Like I mentioned, the actual review is not of the actual ET game, but...
Yeah, ET2 is that thing, yeah.
It's just Mario 64, but bad.
Say Bob's in 3D.
It's like Bob's in 3D.
What could possibly go wrong?
Again, pretty much what happened with Shaq-Fu.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at
And then he
least...
got a sequel.
The thing is...
That's what I mean. The sequel really doesn't really stood that much. The original has such a way to be bad, but the sequel is just... I don't even understand most of its humor.
And they got a DLC campaign where you play as Barack Obama and you have to stop Kanye West.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I asked you to... Dwebs, do you want to bring up your point about the review, or should I?
Okay, I think the actual review's in the credits, but one thing I will say...
Wait,
we're about to get into it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. On one hand, I do agree with the nostalgia critic in that it would have been a bit too obvious and predictable that he would probably if he gets to the ET game, he would probably just say something like I don't know. This game sucks my
Wait,
door
what?
That's what the movie was building up to.
Cooper
Just
and...
like in Alien Resurrection.
Anyway, I was going to say, it would have been too easy if he said, this game sucks my doorknob oil through my dick hole or something like that. So, on one hand, I get it's more just a straightforward talking about it. But on the other hand, I mean... because of how bad the movie's been, it wasn't really that worth it.
Keep in mind also, it's not even really a review of ET, it's more so just a little summarization of the game and just saying the reason about why we don't need a sequel.
See, the thing is, what Dweb said, and second, one of the primary problems I have with the way this so-called AVGN review of ET is done is also this. The nerd, once again, like he is throughout most of this movie, is not really in character. Imagine if this movie had the 2000s nerd, reviewing the movie, like with the usual angerness that he usually has. Instead, James decided with this review to go for the whole, you know what? This game is terrible, but it's such a legendary terrible that has that's not how the original nerd would do a review of this
I guess it's supposed to be
TM punch him in the face.
But guys, I
guess it's supposed to be a sense of irony because of everything that he experienced leading up to that moment.
But guys, I have some good news. We actually will get a review of ET. Bad news is during the credits. Yep. Like, so let me get this straight. You essentially did all these workarounds, but you still actually had the actual review. It's in the credits. What the hell?
Like, people have to pay for this.
Like, again...
Remember, it's still a bootleg, but it's not the actual official game.
Sure. No, I'm talking about people have to pay to see this movie.
Yeah.
Like, again, why would you put the actual review in the credits?
There you go, everybody. You had to wait 1 hour and 49 minutes to get to this point.
Okay.
Was it worth it?
Absolutely not.
Okay, look. For reference sake, Scott the Woz has done these sort of movie-esque specials where he'll start off with what appears to be a review of something, but then it'll blossom into a whole adventure centered potentially around that. My personal favorite probably being the It's Awesome Baby from Dick Vitale. Awesome Baby College Hoops. The point is, again, it was not hard or impossible to include the damn review in the movie. Like, again, keep in mind, the review of E.T. was one of the selling points of this movie. Imagine putting the selling point of your movie in the credits.
Yeah.
And
like I said, I don't really like how the review itself is written. If this was Golden Age nerd, he would be way more angry. He would be making a lot more. He would be a lot more mean to the game because that's kind of the whole point. He's angry.
How. Pedro, forget Golden Age nerd. That's literally how he showed up in the start of the movie, too, doing his usual angry shtick on the camera and stuff. So, this isn't just inconsistent with Golden Age nerd, it's inconsistent with nerd in the movie itself.
Yeah. That's the major big problem. James doesn't seem to understand what made his series good and popular to begin with.
No.
And the fact that we now know that he's not a gamer and that Mike was the one picking most of the games, yeah, it makes sense that without Mike there to help out with the gaming aspect, yeah, it does show.
The problem was Mike was very problematic. It's kind of a case where, again, if he hadn't quit himself, there probably would have just come a point where people were calling for him to get fired. And it's like one of those cases where, yes, the jerks do deserve to be gone. However, sometimes even when creators are jerks, there is a case where only the creator can do it well. I mean, just look at what happened to the Loud House.
Yeah. Like I said, this review is just very
It's basically blue balling, and I someone who actually one of my favorite episodes of the old time of a nerd pre-movie at least is Sword Quest, which is not really done in its traditional style because it's more informative rather than being pissed off at something. So this kind of thing will be possible, but the movie has also the entire show has been building up to this very moment of the infamy also of the game, and then we get this.
If I may, I feel like one of his reviews that mixes, his usual old shtick of being angry, but also having a good insightful bit is his Earthbound review. It's got everything. Angry rants, but also positive bouts here and there. He does end up legit liking the game. It has skits too, but again, for the most part, they flow relatively well there. From what I've seen, apparently Earthbound has agreed to be one of his best post-movie reviews too, which, from what I've heard, the consensus is he did make some of his best content post-movie stuff. But again, the issue was when Screenwave entered the picture.
Yeah.
That being said, here's one thing I can say, though. In case you didn't know, the reception to this movie was, not good. Okay, there were some...
The thing is, everybody... Sorry.
There were some fans that liked it, but keep in mind, even some of his deepest fans, in fact, quite a few of his deepest fans, did not like this. And consider this, it was mixed for the fan base. How do you think it was for non-fans? Yeah,
that's the thing. James saw this movie as a way to start his career. You know, as he himself even admitted in the Inside Look video that we saw. And when you think about it, James, did you really think an angry video game nerd movie was going to be the thing that would start your career? Like, only the fans would be interested in that movie. The critics, obviously, who watched this movie, lambasted this movie for being a nonsensical mess, which it is.
And there you go. The entire point of this is basically just a hot take and saying that Raiders of the Lost Ark is a worse game than E.T. Like, no. Sorry.
Are you fake?
Oh yeah,
I disagree with that too. Yeah.
There was Pedro, you're wondering how much involvement Mike Matei had in the production, and bam, he was in the audio department.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go then.
Yep.
I guess. Anyway, but yeah. Let's face it. An AVGN movie would only really garner interest from the fans. This would never be the movie that would start his career. So his idea of having this be the movie that retires the nerd, and so he can go on and start his filmmaking career proper. I mean, if he really wanted to do that, he should have just done a different movie. Like, this would never be a movie that would start your. And there you go. The movie just
like this.
It just ends with the logo.
It's not
we're
even
done.
an epilogue.
Nope. We're done.
Well, I mean, considering how poor the movie was, I'm kind of glad it ended there.
Like,
Yeah,
all right.
Basically, the nerd is stuck in the desert.
I will say this. We have seen that movies starring content creators surprisingly can actually be successful. Keep in mind, there are no less than 3 Fred movies. 3 of those stinkers.
Thanks, Nickelodeon.
My point
Anyway.
is that I don't think it was impossible for this idea to work. But what it needed to be was, well, probably more so legit good rather than going for intentionally bad. If that's even to be believed, that's what they were going for.
All right, everybody. Real quick before we get into our final thoughts, we just have a couple quick stuff to go through. What will happen after this? Basically, after this, remember about that whole thing about how some of this kind of. A lot of people like to theorize that James became paranoid of time. Now, for those who don't know, I recommend finding the videos James Roll versus Time, which is the compilation that a fan made of every single time James complains about how there's no time for insert thing here. Since that's a long stuff for us to do, I decided to take a clip from Dylan's retrospective, 2 minutes long, that gives you the basic rundown, an abridged bit that shows how James became very paranoid with time. Okay, 3, 2, 1, click. The filter is to avoid copyright.
Mm-hmm.
Because Screenwave Media is very copyright trigger happy.
Mm-hmm. Time.
Oh, trust me, Debs. Watch the full version of this thing. It's hilarious how much he complains about how there's no time for this. There's no time for that.
Someone made a time counter.
Oh, trust me, Debs.
Oh boy, 540.
It's also sad starting to see his hair receding like that.
Yes, no time to grow it back.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
it
here you go.
happens.
This is the bit that I talked about before. Yeah. So what games are you playing, James? Are you starting to see a pattern here, guys?
Uh,
Every time he talks about the movie, he doesn't have time to watch them. Every time he talks about wrestling, he doesn't have time to watch. He doesn't have time for anything. It's this phobia of time. And I'm not kidding, everybody. People even made this into a meme that James was both this and yeah thing from the real reviews. James has no time for anything, apparently. Literally nothing. So a lot of people like to theorize that the time scheduling problems of the movie kind of made him create this phobia of time, which I don't think it's implausible at all. All right, everybody. So now time to see to end this retrospective on the nerd with this abridged version that I made of the Nerd Room Tour 2021. This is the video where the fan base had a rift. And
Wow.
yeah, this was the video where a lot of people really turned on James. Like, if you go to the original video, which we will have in the description there as well, you can even see the comments on how people are saying stuff like, "Oh, this is the most unintentionally hilarious video ever made," and how his setup is terrible. All right, Whips, you want to see what his setup is when it comes to shooting the nerd videos? Take a look at this, Whips. You're gonna find this interesting. 3, 2, 1, click. So let's see how he captures this footage. I mean, we ourselves capture footage, so we can judge this.
Oh,
Let's
this
see.
video.
Yes.
Okay. So he's got some lights here and there.
Oh, we'll get to the lights. Complaints of the holish variety. For the record, everybody, this is James addressing criticism for the first time ever because he's never done this before. Am I the only one noticing a pattern here? There seems to be a lot of technical issues behind the scenes of James's productions, isn't there?
I kind
is
of.
this how this?
Like when Cadigros tried to build a PC and nothing would go right.
Are you sure you needed to do it that way, James?
Sounds like a you problem.
It's funny you mentioned
look,
that to you.
Elgato. See, we also use Elgato. See?
4SD. Oh.
Let me ask you a question, James. Are you a complete useless person who can't handle your shit? Like, seriously, why is there such a constant stream of problems?
Look, I can get
Throughout the
maybe
years.
having issues with tech, but you've been in the business in it for this long? Like, not for nothing. But in the years that we've been doing the Squirm Show, even I've upgraded my tech, essentially, and we do not have nearly as big a follower base as James does, so what's his excuse?
Oh, this bit here.
Oh boy. Adobe Premiere? Why are you even...
Hold on, Jova. That's the thing, Joe. But remember, he uses a Mac, meaning for a long time he's been using Final Cut Pro. Deji, you're a Mac user. Why do you want to talk to us about Final Cut Pro?
Well, Final Cut Pro is a program that costs $300, which I have bought, and it's actually not complicated to use. If he's having trouble, I recommend that he YouTube some tutorials to help him do the bare minimum, because that's how I basically edit for my Let's Plays and the podcast that's still going. But so I don't know what James's excuse is.
So was Final Cut Pro like the Mac answer to Sony Vegas?
Basically.
Because I've used Sony Vegas, you know what I mean? Again, usually our work dictates nothing more complex than Movie Maker, especially since Movie Maker can, for the most part, get out a good enough looking video for our commenter as long as you set the bit rate high enough and get the settings right for 720p 60 FPS or 1080p 60 FPS. But again, James has a much more, well, in theory, complex show than ours, essentially, as in it needs to be a full-on show, intercutting both live-action bits of footage with him and gameplay footage. Like, let me put it like this. If we ever got to the point of making an actual show, I would definitely use Sony Vegas instead of Movie Maker for it.
And you'd also research how to use it, correct?
Exactly.
Even if it's for the bare minimum.
Here's the thing. With YouTube, it is insanely easy to research the stuff.
The thing is, remember, most of the stuff that he does now, it's done with Screenwave's help. Screenwave nowadays does all the tech stuff for him because apparently he doesn't know how to do it himself, which, again, that would be fine. It just boggles the mind how even after all this time, he still has so many troubles.
Again,
like I have a YouTube playlist of video editing tutorials because, sometimes I'll get stuck with something. I want to do a cool editing trick.
Hold on. Okay, so he doesn't like tripods around anymore because they get in the way when you're shooting the video. Okay. So what does he do to fix that problem? And yeah, he reads a teleprompter instead of memorizing the script, which is, I don't know. I feel like it would be much better if he just tried to memorize the script like he did in the old days. I don't know why use a teleprompter, but whatever.
But yeah, I recall some cool editing bits you've done too, like that bit for the Mighty Number 9 bit where you photoshopped in a sprite over SpongeBob footage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Terrence is more diverse in Final Cut Pro than I am.
Basically, right now he's addressing the complaint that nerd episodes nowadays are way too basic, where it's just the nerd sitting on a couch, where if you go back to the older episodes, even basic episodes usually had multiple camera angles and interesting lighting decisions here and there. But nowadays, most nerd episodes are just static, the nerd on a couch reviewing and nothing else going on. Which is something that, because remember, like one of the big appeals of old AVGN was that James would always employ his filmmaking knowledge to make the reviews more visually interesting.
How weird is it?
Competition.
How weird is it that the newer stuff feels somehow more amateurish than the old stuff in that regard?
That's because it's abundantly clear that after the AVGN movie failed, James probably really lost the passion for it at this point. It's just like...
Okay, normally it would be easy to say that, but remember, he released some of his best reviews after the movie. Like, okay, most people seem to agree where stuff really went downfall was when Screenwave came on board. And that's not just for the AVGN, but Cinemassacre as a whole.
Yeah, he also has two mics, one in front of the couch and one on the ceiling, as you're going to see later.
I'm looking forward to the bit when we get to that.
Don't worry, we're almost there. In fact, I think it's now, actually. Or is it? Oh, no, hold on. A few more seconds before.
Yep, he dangles this stuff from the ceiling.
Well, okay, it's a microphone. So usually microphones are done like that in film production, so that's fine.
Of course.
It's what comes after that I have an issue with. Yeah, and here's the audio bit where he, of course, changes the audio and shit.
See, here's the issue with James. He does come off as earnest. The problem is that the reasoning is not really enticing.
Hold on, Jova. Here it is. So guess what? Since James doesn't like tripods on the floor, he I'm not kidding. He staples all of the lights and shit on the ceiling.
Yeah, that's a safety hazard. Holy.
Not only is that a safety hazard, think about this for a moment. This explains why the nerd videos of today are always just a static shot. Because in order to have different angles, you have to move all this shit around.
So
let me get this straight, James. You just made shooting videos 100 times more difficult.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that Garfield comic strip where he literally nails the TV to the ceiling just so he can lie down and look at it. And John mentions, have you ever seen somebody work so hard at it being so lazy? That's kind of what this feels like.
Hey, Dwebs, I think there's only one thing we can say about this. What were you thinking?
Also, just mentioning, Kadikaros says something similar to this, but he has an entire backyard where he can shoot around things.
Okay. Here's my question, James. You're telling me that adding on the beloved screen wave that you know was supposed to be the savior of AVGN, you didn't get a filming crew to help with this stuff? Like, all those bells and whistles that Screenwave gave, and yet you're still more or less doing the filming on your own.
I mean, I could get that during the pandemic.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking about the pandemic part. That is fair. I'm talking about this setup. This setup is so and if you go watch the proper official video on the channel, you'll see plenty of people in the comments pointing out how this is such an ineffective setup that makes things 100 times more complicated. Because again, every time you need to change the camera angle, you have to move all these lights along with it, which is why you was this really worth it? Was it really worth doing this just because? Weren't there any other better ways of doing this while keeping the tripods on the floor so you can easily move them?
And it comes to this. Man, like I said before, James argued if it weren't for Screenwave and all this, you probably wouldn't even be getting AVGN episodes. Here's the problem.
Exactly. Very good job. Now, remember that first video we watched today? Where James said, I can get somebody else to write the review for me. It's an opinionated review. But now, all of a sudden... No, that's no longer a problem, apparently. Now he's perfectly fine with Screenwave writing reviews for him now.
And here's the thing, a lot of people have pointed out, they didn't want reviews like this. They would have probably been better off if the AVGN had ended. And oh god, the disappointment towards episode 200 was big.
Alright, so let's see what he says about the criticism bit.
And there it is.
Maximilian is fine for now.
Icarus kind of has kids too.
Yeah.
I guess Max, all he really does is just stream video games.
No, so here's the thing. This I would be kind of understanding if this was back when his kids were newborn babies. That's of course the time. But his kids are in school now. They don't require attention 24/7 anymore. So this is no longer the kind of issue that he's putting. And like Jova and Teo just said, there are plenty of YouTubers who have families and kids, and they're still perfectly able to do their YouTube stuff themselves. So it's not like this is an impossibility.
I mean, Icarus gets around this issue by not having a set schedule.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. The YouTube algorithm will screw over somebody who doesn't upload YouTube videos regularly. But that being said, is it really so much that you have to do it? Especially since, okay, here's where the context of the other Cinemassacre stuff comes in. Technically, you did have other stuff that could have filled in for the AVGN stuff. In fact, at some points in time, it was filling in for it. Of course, this regards the elephant in the room. A lot of those projects were not well received. There was Cinemassacre Podcast, which was kind of sort of the revival of review rentals.
Hold on, Joe. I want to address what he's saying right now. Yes, I get that they help you, James, but that's not the point. The point is that they suck at writing the reviews, according to most people. I know that Dibs likes some of the modern videos, but a lot of people, myself included, think that their writing is not as good.
If I may, I feel like the best representation of the problems with the modern era was the 200th episode, one that was incredibly hyped up to be his take on all LJN videos, and a lot of it really just amounts to a clip show.
I also want to address what he said, that people who complain about Screenwave's involvement are being, as he puts it, counterproductive.
Boy, that did not age well, given when the whole plagiarism controversy came about.
Yeah, but what you just saw, everybody, was the video where I officially went, okay, if I'm being counterproductive, James, I guess I'll just stop watching altogether at this point, because this video was just, to me, this video was the final straw. I just so people who criticize you, the quality of your content are being quote unquote counterproductive, huh? Okay, fine. I will stop being counterproductive, James. I'm done then. Thank you. Hello. Goodbye, everybody. That's it. And what you just saw, ladies and gentlemen, was basically a sum of my history with this guy, James Rolfe, and how I kind of grew disillusioned to him because of, this video, this was the first and only time he addressed criticism. And if this is how he addresses criticism, then I'm...
no wonder it took a while.
Anyway, that was it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this AVGN extravaganza retrospective. That was just a pet project of mine. Dibs, final thoughts.
Okay, I'll just talk about the movie because
Go on. Sure.
Okay, I get where he was coming from, and I get his ambition and hard work he put into the movie. Unfortunately, it didn't come off that well in terms of quality. There is a plot, but a lot of scenes are just needlessly stretched out. And it takes forever to explain stuff that should be really simple, and it makes it come off as really convoluted. Some of the acting really isn't that good, especially from the general guy. I mean, he isn't that good at being hammy, to be honest. I mean, how do you even do that?
Part of me wonder. I really think it's up to the direction, because keep in mind, the way he acts for the first half of the movie is at complete odds with how he acts for the later half of the movie. That feels much more like a directing issue. Because for the first half, he's more like the gruff military voice, but then later he goes for this weird, over-the-top dramatic voice. And again, there's no rhyme or reason to the change either.
And the effects are something. I mean, the kaiju stuff looks alright, but all the other stuff is just, I mean, even by B-movie standards, it just looks like miniatures. It's like someone just recorded themselves playing. I don't know. It was like a child recording their super awesome thing that they're doing today for their science class, except it's meant for a big movie. Well, not big movie exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, the music's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's Bear McCreary, so
You would hope that.
yeah. And in terms of the movie, that's really about it. Okay, I'll end this whole thing as a whole by saying that I don't think Rolf is an arsehole or anything, but he is really, really bad at stuff like
addressing criticism.
Well, not just addressing criticism, but timekeeping and that. And to dispel a common misconception amongst people, just because you're bad at addressing or dispelling criticism doesn't automatically mean you're a dickhead.
Oh, no. That's not what I'm saying.
there is a nuance to everything. Like maybe you just can't word things properly, or
Sure.
or maybe you can, but it's your tone of voice, or practically anything really. I mean, it's not like
Sure.
it's not like he's Chris Balls or anything like that.
My take on the
Sure.
situation is that he is in a tight spot where Angry Video Game Nerd does pay his bills, and Screenwave is helping him in a way that he's comfortable with. But he's trying to word his reasoning in a way that doesn't throw Screenwave under the bus, essentially. It's just that, in doing so, he ended up throwing his fans under the bus, proverbially. Not on purpose, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
And again, another thing I can dispel is that sometimes the fan base, whether it's just a few people or whether it's like a worryingly whole lot of them, sometimes they do shitty things, and sometimes
They do.
sometimes you have to tell them, okay, guys, I appreciate your support, but you're going about this thing the wrong way, or
Sure.
I didn't tell you go harass this person, and all that stuff.
I do see quite a recurring cases among content creators where, even though they don't mean bad, stuff and drama just ends up piling up around them. They aren't exactly best prepared to handle it the best, have a bit of a downfall arc, and then they either continue on that downfall arc or pull themselves out of that pit, essentially.
A lot of times that's just handled by just having a little break from it and then coming back later on when you've calmed down a bit and addressed everything.
The problem is that it doesn't look like James is anywhere near taking that break. He has had chance over chance to retire or even give the nerd a break, but...
Well, you see, Jova, I could do that, but unfortunately, I don't have the time.
Yeah, again, he's so tired.
And yet, he did some bizarre things like retiring instead bored James by making him become the AVGN.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, people really liked Bored James.
But, well, Tail, like he himself said at the beginning of that video we just saw, he could continue Bored James, but unfortunately, he doesn't have the time. Sorry.
Alas.
Yeah, okay, I get personal commitments and everything, but yeah.
All right, anything else, Tips?
Okay, it just kind of screams of bad time at this. So I'm saying it now.
Again, like I said, everybody, go watch the James Rolfe versus Time series that fans have made. It's hilarious because he says this so many times. It's such a great meme. Go on, Tips.
Time pager.
Yeah, I don't have the time, Tips. Go on.
But yeah, summing it up. Okay. This whole saga as a whole, it's nowhere near as bad as, say, the Channel Awesome fiasco.
Oh yeah,
but it still had its own issues, and I mean, it hasn't killed his channel or anything.
No,
but
it's kind of put it in a sense of purgatory, where it's still going, but it's.
I mean, it's the natural course of
burnout.
It's kind of like what happened with what fans like to call Zombie Simpsons, where the series is still going, but yeah, compared to its heyday, it's just kind of going.
Which is funny because from what I've heard, apparently the recent season of Simpsons was a good return to form. I still have yet to see if that's really the case, but hey, this is probably the most positive I've heard people be about Simpsons since, I'm gonna say, the movie.
Alright. Anything else, Tips?
Nah, that's it. It was an interesting look into things, and yes, I have about as much time to do this as I do trying to catch up on my backlog of stuff.
Okay. Dej.
What were they thinking?
Exactly.
I'd rather get my balls kicked in the. I'd rather get kicked in the dick by a donkey than spend a. No.
Where's the real movie script? In my ass?
This movie sucks. I'm not trying to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to bash James. I understand this was a passion project. I know that it was really his dream to make it into Hollywood, but I really wish that he got a script. This feels like a first draft, and they didn't go through it, realize, maybe this isn't funny. Given that it was written it started in 2006, right?
The script was written in 2006, and it got some rewrites in 2008. And they started shooting in 2012.
Clearly, they needed to do another revision before they started shooting.
Like I said, even by 2014 standards, a lot of the attitude and writing of that movie was outdated.
Like I can handle a lot of schlock. I'm a Sonic fan after all. But this is so. It feels like I was watching a Nigerian movie.
In what way?
I've never seen any Nigerian movies, so.
Okay.
One day.
Okay, Deds. Tread carefully, but in what way does it remind you?
Not a good way, because Nigeria. The movie. I'm Nigerian. I can say it. You guys are fine. Those movies are cheaply made, poorly written, and it's like, oh my god, get me out of here. It's so. I don't. Maybe it's because I didn't grow up with the AVGN that I can't appreciate it. Like, given that your reactions, this is
Deji. I wanted to write it back at me. I did.
Yeah, I had enough knowledge of him to be able to get AVGN references as well, and I can tell you, having finally seen this, this ain't it. In fact, if anything, I'd say in some regards, being an AVGN fan might make this worse. Like, again, imagine you were awaiting, finally, at long last, the E.T. review. The review that doesn't show up until the credits.
And it's bad.
That would be me.
Yeah,
like didn't they go through some? Was there some behind the scenes drama with this movie?
Yeah, I explained that.
Look, this movie was bad, and my brain was.
Okay. To make a long story short, apparently, according to extras from the movie who had since come out and talked about it, apparently there was a lot of incompetence on set.
And it really shows.
And there was also a lot of problems where they kept running out of time and barely made their shots, which is why a lot of people like to theorize that this experience of making this movie is what grew James's phobia of time. So.
Yeah. And here's the biggest issue of this plot: the nerd himself. In the videos I've seen, he's a jerk. He's unlikable. He's meant to be an unlikable piece of garbage, but that's what makes him endearing. Here they try to make him out as like, oh, he's actually a pretty noble guy. I was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. He's just a guy getting angry at video games for no reason. What would have made this interesting? Because I can forgive the effects, because again, it's an amateur film. That's not what I'm.
One shot in Hollywood, remember?
Yeah, but still, I'm more critical towards the writing. If the nerd was basically okay, yes, he's internet famous, but the twist is, but we know that in universe he's supposed to be a loser. If they delved into that, it's like, no, you're a loser. And what you do on the internet is not a reflection of how real life is, and he's coming to terms with that dilemma, and he feels like the only way to be liked, get more attention, is if he does that ET review or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this just feels like, no offense, a self-insert that how he's like Giga Chad, that girls want to sign his tits.
Yeah.
Even though he says one of the things about being a nerd is no girls.
That's the thing. Like Deji said, like it's a complete misunderstanding of the character. James himself even said as much. Like you can actually, I recommend everybody watch Neo Jesus's retrospective called James Rolfe Times Forgotten Filmmaker, where he does a little retrospective about stuff, and he even brings up that clip because I actually forgot where that original clip is from. Where James even says that the nerd is supposed to be the butt of the joke. He's a loser who's obsessed with video games for even though it's a futile exercise. But like Deji said, in the movie, no, he's basically fucking God. Like, I don't. Well, go on.
And the original character that what was his name? Cooper. Why wasn't it Mike?
Exactly. That's what everybody was asking when this movie came out. That why isn't Mike Matei the like? Because remember, this is the thing. Cooper, the actor Jeremy Suarez and James Rolfe don't really have that good chemistry.
And considering he's very famous, if I recall correctly, he never appeared in actually an AVGN episode after this.
No, but Mike, as we saw in the various skits with the Bugs Bunny, the Joker stuff that we saw, James and Mike have great chemistry because remember, they're childhood friends. So this entire idea of Cooper was just such a stupid idea, in my opinion. Go
on. And the girl, it's like, you know the meme that men can't write jazz?
Yep.
Especially Hollywood. Yeah, it kind of feels like she's just the girl.
I'm not wearing any panties. I know, but
like I could understand the idea. It's like, okay, yes, she's just using them to boost her career or something like that. But she's actually starts to appreciate them as friends. That would have been an interesting idea, but it's like, no, the bond chemistry is nowhere. And the romance...
Which may remind you, doesn't even turn out to be a romance for the nerd, but apparently Cooper gets the girl.
It wasn't even built up.
No, I mean, they're literally building up more the relationship between...
Like I said,
think
they wanted
Maddie's her
to
name.
be a reference to Alien Resurrection.
You'll have to explain that to me later.
Okay, honestly...
Alien Resurrection builds up with Ripley being potentially romantically interested in Winona Ryder's character, which is a bit creepy because of how young she was at the time. But at the end of it, instead, it's Ron Perlman who kisses another guy.
Well, don't you see, Tio? It's because technically Ripley is also young because she's a clone in that movie. And, well, okay, look, the only reason I doubt that is because that's a 90s flick, and James was pretty much referencing mainly 80s flicks in this movie. I don't know. That being said, what a very obscure reference in that regard. Like, not so much that the movie itself is that obscure. There are a fair enough amount of people who know about it, but still, a thing to reference. And even still, it kind of misses the point, because that was technically one pair of characters people were expecting to kiss, but it was a different pair of characters that actually kissed, and if that is a reference, it's stupid.
I'm checking the comment section of James Rolfe versus Time, the complete first season. I like this first comment. The fans were right after all. AVGN is truly timeless.
Anyway, you're done, Dej?
I'll just say I do appreciate some of the camera work, and I do like the design of the kaiju, even though, like Tio said, it should have been Super Mecha Death Christ.
Someone else said it.
Pedro said that.
Yeah. Yep. But when you just sit down and look at it from a plot standpoint, it makes no sense. What was the military trying to do? Sending a missile to Fiji to summon the kaiju god thing. How it got resolved was dumb. It's oh my god.
All right then, Tio.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it wasn't exactly the first major reviewer that I came across. Believe it or not, I discovered Doug first before James.
Same.
But I was particularly interested in almost all of his old videos. My favorites probably being, like I said, Sword Quest, the game glitches, and stuff usually around that that kind of, instead of focusing on one game, sort of a more recollection of something, you know.
I'm
But
guessing the Castlevania retrospective is probably one that you probably also
a
enjoyed.
bit,
Wasn't
yeah.
that-
So that's still a good time. But there was something so captivating about that. And in this movie, there's only a fraction of that. I won't say that there's nothing in it, because I do believe at some point, particularly towards the end, the movie is trying their hardest and getting that there. There's a bit of, of that energy in that. But like I said, it's for nothing anyway. And the actual review itself about the game, the movie built up, and particularly the entire show, it's not only a letdown, but kind of an absurd hot take when you really get down to it. Like, if it was just in a review of his channel, like, oh yeah, this is weird, but I can, just ignore it like that. But no, this is basically the equivalent of blue balling.
It
Big time.
really is. Like, I don't want to say he has contempt for his fans, but I do wonder.
Maybe
Did you
no,
really
I think it comes
Hold
from a
on.
place of more ignorance than anything. He just doesn't understand.
Remember, Joe,
That's
don't
kinda
attribute to malice what can be easily attributed to stupidity.
That's what I was getting at. Is like, well, I get the feeling he did mean well by the fans. It's just that, oh man, he really has those clueless moments.
Go on to.
The acting is fine for the most part. I even like the general guy in his over-the-topness, to be honest. I very enjoy the special effects all over the place, not just the kaiju. Again, both the CGI and the toys and everything. Again, it shows classic mentality. Kind of like, ironically, kind of like George Lucas doing the first couple of Star Wars movies. Using every trick, as Pedro mentioned, using every trick possible to make an interesting product. And yes, it does pays off for me. But again, it's all in service of a story, but it's not really that interesting, and it's not really attached to the nerd character that much, as we mentioned, because the nerd is not really in character that much for the entire movie. Only a fraction of that. His best friend is just a new guy, technically, that has to try the damn hardest to carry almost all the plot. But because there's no experience behind it, it doesn't have the same punch. The women in this movie are written completely horribly. I might have laughed a couple of jokes, but objectively, they are badly written. For a 2014 movie, it's kind of inexcusable. And I think James Todd ruled it by not wanting to review Ghostbusters 2016, when I think about it. And again, who is this movie was really made for outside from the nerd itself? I don't know.
Yeah.
For comparison, the Top 4 War movie, which is also 2 hours long, I think it's very digestible for lack of a term. It doesn't contain reviews, but it's actually part of the entire storyline, so you can ignore completely if you're not into that kind of thing, and it also has cheap effects, sure. But I like what people like Ralph the Movie Maker will tell. Honestly, it's really enjoyable, if you ask me, especially compared to the previous channel, also movies. It comes also from a place of art and has experience, kind of in terms of the content that is boring. It's not something that is completely alienating if you've been watching previous videos from that person specifically, It feels just as cohesive, just on a bigger budget, If you normally don't like that kind of thing, sure, and you can ignore the movie for that or criticize it if you have to. But compared to this movie, there's a more general idea, and the best thing about it, compared to this movie, that one can actually be watched for free on YouTube. I don't understand why after all these times James hasn't decided to actually man up and put this thing on his channel.
That's the thing too, if I may. That's a good segue for me to bring up one thing too, if you don't mind, allow me. The Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures video game actually had the characters from the movie originally. However, when they later re-released those video games, they replaced the movie characters, which kind of led a lot of people to think that James probably, and combined with the whole thing, probably regrets
making
this.
All right, was it just like copyright reasons?
No. These characters. No, I'm talking about the movie original characters. These all belong to Cinemassacre. Like
I understand that mentality, but if there's something like crossovers, in this big company also showcase it to me, is that eventually, if you actually embrace even the bad parts, eventually you can actually get something good out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah, the Dragon Ball Super Bro movie is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took two elements from two bad movies and made it into good.
But again, my point in this is that it is a bit disappointing. I still occasionally peeked a bit into what James has been doing these days. Like I said, I really enjoyed the Pepsi Man review. I don't know, I forgot how long was it.
I think that was before Screenwave came on board.
Okay. My bad then.
Again, I don't know, Pedro, when was the benchmark for when Screenwave came on board?
2016.
I think the Pepsi Man one was more recent, 2018 at least. For comparison, instead, I really did not like the Toxic Avenger review. I know that the guy, the director of that, is really passionate and everything, but that review is just cringe.
What about the Life of Black Tiger review?
I haven't seen it.
All right, let's continue. Go
on. But no, I guess that's kind of it. It's kind of a shame that between this and Channel Awesome, the things that started essentially the review panorama of YouTube, these big mythos and everything, ended up becoming not just necessarily disappointing to say the least, sure, when in some cases we're not outright pressing in how they actually fell, but it's kind of like a bit of a kid discovering that Santa Claus is not real. Your entire world gets turned upside down, and then you just have to move on. Move on, I shall, like many people have. And again, it proves that something better, something good can still come after that, I suppose. Because, like I said, these days there are plenty of people who still embraces the spirit, but on the other hand, but as Jola said, the caustic critic has kind of dropped out, and even myself have preferred now to watch some that's more informative rather than just basically someone like say Mandalore Gaming or Someone Call Me Johnny. They will have a couple of jokes here and there or still criticize the product, but for the most part they're there to give a proper description and their opinions on the product in a more calm and informative kind of way. But yeah, the nerd will still have a place in my memories, especially on YouTube. So there is that. Next,
Jova.
Man. So it is really astonishing to me just how, in a lot of ways, James Rolfe and Doug Walker's both rises and falls seem somewhat similar. They get a big shot, they help revolutionize the particular entertainment era, and then they have this one big magnum opus that, man, really causes that big dent. For Doug, it was To Boldly Flee, which was him trying to retire the nostalgia critic, and we all know that didn't pan out, amongst with all the other drama and whatnot. With James, okay, this movie, oh boy. This movie feels like, I don't want to say this movie was the start, because from what I have researched, it seemed like the start of his downgrade was kind of more so during the production of the movie. Again, where the episodes he was making while making the movie were obviously not his best. The weird thing is, afterwards, he did have an uptick in quality here and there. And, again, if I can get a better gauge on when Screenwave came aboard, maybe there are even some good Screenwave episodes. But they're not the norm. But let's talk about this movie first before I really get into my thoughts afterwards in regards to what he did. Like, oh boy, this movie. To say at the very least it's problematic by today's standards would be an understatement. 'Cause holy cow. Again, like I said, I feel like James's greatest weakness is what used to be his biggest strength. That being when, where, and how he rose to prominence. Being incredibly raunchy in a time where that stuff actually was considered comedic gold. Again. So, where the differences between him and Doug Walker are here. Doug eventually did evolve the critic to be more than just angry sweary guy, to the point where he even had a whole year dedicated to avoiding using swears all easy and whatnot. James seems like he was stuck in that mentality, and it shows especially in this movie. A lot of the dialogue just does not fly. Like, it's not even about people being too sensitive. Like, no. It can be hard to sit through if you're not into the raunchy stuff. Like, because believe it or not, there were a sizable amount of fans who enjoyed Video Game Nerd, but not exclusively for the raunchiness. In fact, some people kind of liked him in spite of those bits. No, I'm not saying to get rid of it altogether, but there are better ways to handle it with some amount of class. Again, there's only so much class you can have in a movie as raunchy as this, but there is a way to try and tackle it, but it just doesn't work. And like I mentioned, James tossed everything he wanted into this movie, likely because he was kind of worried this was going to be his only movie, which, yeah, probably, but still though, it makes the movie feel so unfocused. And the way the villains go out are lame. I get it that maybe that was the intention, but, you know, first of all, Tio, what is it that good intentions help pave again?
Just being through with the movie, my ass.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's like, look, James, I'm sure you had good intentions, but even with that in mind, making a movie intentionally bad is surprisingly harder than it sounds. Like, you think, oh, just go for it to be bad? No, what you run the risk of is it just being boring, in some cases. Again, I'm not saying this is impossible, but it feels like James's priorities were a bit...
Two is sadly an example of how to not do an intentional bad movie.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah. Let me put it like this. It feels like James's priorities were all over the map with this movie. Like, 1 minute he's talking about how it's going to be a big, sweeping, epic that will help open the road to others. And then in others, it's like, oh, no, it's intentionally bad. Now, granted, if I recall correctly, it's only the defenders who have said it was supposed to be intentionally bad.
I want to emphasize that. When I mentioned that bit during the movie, I was talking about what some people who defend the movie say, not
exactly.
James himself. James, as we saw in the Inside Look video, James had big ambitions for this movie. He really wanted this to pave the way for independent filmmakers to make films.
Now, that being said, while the whole he wanted it to intentionally be bad thing is hearsay, a lot of his actions with this film do speak to that effect. Like, we've got stuff like the B-movie shots, the mugging at the camera bits. Like, it does feel like he intentionally was not planning to make your standard Hollywood movie. And you know what? Fair beans. The problem was, it's bad. Like, really bad. The pacing is bad. Look, and you know, honestly, I could argue that this is worse than bad, especially if, again, you were waiting for that E.T. review but got blue-balled, but even still, the journey itself was not exactly that fun and endearing. Again,
so basically, that's interesting because I've heard many criticisms about this movie over the years, but you and Teo are the first people to basically call this the cinematic equivalent of blue balls.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
Yeah, if the shoe fits.
And again, I had no idea this was like a fully cinematic movie. Like, I think I had heard about the kickstarting, but I never knew it got to the point of Hollywood, because the way the movie looks does look like a glorified internet project. And you know what? Maybe that was the intent, but I do feel like that hurts on the production values here and there. I do wonder how much of it was intentional, because the weird thing is, while there are the obvious B-movie shots, there are then some shots that look like they are definitely to be taken seriously from a movie, which makes the whole thing feel like a weird potluck leftover dinner mixture of all these different film tropes and ideas, which again, do not flow together well. And not ignoring that, a lot of the plot points clash with one another. So you're telling me AVGN is a down on his luck guy, despite the fact that he is so popular to the point of companies wanting to sponsor him. So money shouldn't really be an issue, and he's the big hero to this all, to the point where the government thinks that using him will help them rule the world or some jazz. Okay? And the writing with the women, oh dear lord, it's not even good satire or anything. It's like, okay, it's dated at best, and yeah, no, it's pretty sexist at worst. Again, it's not about people being too sensitive to it. Like I mentioned, by 2014, gamer girls were very much a thing.
Yeah. Jova, she's not a girl, she's a gamer. Apparently you can't be both.
Oh, God, and the whole, well, I wanted to go this whole bit, which is weird. Does she know she's in a movie? When she suddenly goes, I wanted to go through this without having to degrade myself to a sexy cat fight scene or something, even though it's not even really that sexy, really.
Look, Jova, you know for a fact that if this movie was made today, they'd make a bathwater joke.
No. Just, no.
No, not really.
Honestly, Dad, no. Even that joke would kind of be outdated by this point. It's just, it does not work. And I get it, James really had a lot of passion in it. Oh, guess what? I'm sure Ed Wood had a lot of passion. And look where that got him, where, he didn't actually learn from his mistakes. He died making porn, which, last I checked, probably wasn't his dream. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, what we have was James's magnum opus, which blew up in his face. As for the stuff that came after, okay, again, I do find it weird how, in a sense, like Doug, the nerd did come back, but in a less savory manner here and there with the whole Screenwave stuff. The odd thing, though, is that whereas Doug has gone on to be willing to accept criticism and has, thankfully, nostalgia critic-wise, overall gotten better for it, James kinda did the equivalent of, I don't want to say plugging his fingers in his ears and going, I won't listen, but he more or less just stonewalled off all criticism. Again, he did acknowledge that there were some who were nicer than others, but at the end of the day, his response is, well, with Screenwave, you're getting AVGN episodes. And again, people have said, we don't want them like this.
And let me remind what he says in that video, that last video that we just saw. He says that if without Screenwave helping me, you would only see 3 videos per year. Would you want that? My answer is actually yes, James. In fact, like we saw in the first ever couple videos we saw today, that's what James used to think. Remember, he said, oh, it's much better if we just have fewer videos so we don't shut out crap. Where's that James? Where did that James go?
Now, again, I get the feeling the real reason he has to do with this is because of the YouTube algorithm, which, honestly, I wonder why didn't he just come out and say that, if that is the case, mind you, because honestly...
but Icarus manages to still be successful while still taking his time with his stuff. I mean, James is a big following. I'm pretty sure he can go that route too.
I do wonder here and there. It's very, very off. But that's just the same, though, that seeing the Angry Video Game Nerd kind of fall into this lull here and there. I really do hope that James... Well, okay, you know what? Honestly, I was about to say I hope he does find happiness. That kind of does tie into a lot of the backlash with some of his other projects. Like, you may have heard of this band he's in, Rex Viper. It seems to be that the most positive thing people have to say is, I'm glad he's found something where it seems like he's having fun. Which I think says a lot about the current state of AVGN.
See, here's the thing. I love how he doesn't have time to do board games, but he has time to start a rock band.
Yeah. And
he really saw the completionist and was like, hey, you know what? I can do that.
If he was honest and just said, guys, I don't want to make more board games, I'm not interested, I would at least respect that. But he comes on screen, on camera, he says, I'm not going to do board games even though a lot of you want more board games because I don't have the time. What happens after that? He starts a rock band. Okay, so you have time for a rock band. And don't get me wrong, if he would rather do a rock band over bring back board games, that's fine. Just be honest and say it.
And again, for those thinking, oh, the rock band's just a hobby of his, no, he also monetizes those videos too. They had a live showing at a games convention. Like, no. Again, despite the fact that has been widely unpopular, probably even more unpopular than the Cinemassacre podcast, Rex Viper is, I guess, his thing, but it sure as hell ain't taken off. Oh boy. But yeah, I think the AVGN movie is just a good representation for the path that the Angry Video Game Nerd went down. He is well-meaning, has good intentions, but those good intentions are paving a road in the wrong direction, to put it incredibly politely.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, Pedro, close us out with your final thoughts.
I'm not going to repeat much of the stuff that has been said already for the sake of getting this commentary done. The point is, yeah, as someone who did watch, and that's the thing, and I'll go even a step further than Teo, even like I've watched pretty much all the stuff he used to do back in the day. I watched Cinemassacre, Monster Madness, AVGN, Board James, even various movie reviews he's done for other things where he was doing it out of character and everything. I used to watch pretty much everything he did, which is why I was very excited for this movie, and I was so utterly disappointed, and like Teo put it very well, blue balled with the review, and that's why this commentary kind of serves as a little bit of closure for me, where I'm just like, that this is my own one chance to have to voice this on a public video and shit like that. So the point is, yeah, the movie sucks, and James's entire dressing of... See, here's the thing, because a lot of people want him to try to make another movie. In fact, he himself even said that he has an idea for a horror movie. But once again, he talked about how I don't have the time to make another movie and blah, 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 blah. Never mind the fact that plenty of filmmakers have children. But whatever. The point is... my problem with him is that, okay, see, if James Rolfe would at the very least be honest and just say, guys, after what happened with the first movie, I'm burnt out. I just lost the passion for this, and I just want to keep making the videos, since those are what gives me my money and shit like that. I don't really want to work on board games. I'm just kind of done. I want to instead focus on my... If you would at the very least be honest and just say that would be fine. Okay, fine. That's fair. But no, instead, he comes up on screen. He says he doesn't have time for anything. He keeps using his kids as an excuse. And then after he keeps saying he has no time for anything, we see him starting a rock band. We see him do all these other things and everything. Wait, so again, like I said, you say you have no time for other projects aside from AVGN, and yet you're starting a rock band. So which is it? Do you have time for other things or not?
Maybe the rock band is like his own personal time machine that generates more time for him, but coincidentally, it only funnels time into the band, so he can add that on to his usual projects.
Yeah, That's the basic gist, everybody. Yeah, like the reason, trust me, everybody, if you feel like I'm exaggerating, no. Like I said, I recommend everybody go check out on YouTube James Rolfe versus Time. It's hilarious how often he says it. He constantly complains about how time is awful and how I don't have time for anything. I've run out of time. Oh, I've wanted to do this, but I don't have time. I want to do this, but I don't have time. And it's just like this. Time is James's biggest enemy, apparently. Like it's just like, again. I get it. You're not good at time management and schedule management. That's good. That's fine. Not everybody is. That's why you hire personal assistants for this shit. There are ways of fixing those problems, James. And that's the problem. He seems to be... That's the big problem with James. Nowadays, he just comes across as... And again, that whole technology stuff that we saw about stapling the equipment. He comes across as the boomer of the video game reviewing scene. Like, and he keeps, and he's so stuck in his way that he refuses to just adapt.
Again, I'm not even a licensed medical official, but I saw like several safety hazards with that setup.
Well, I'll tell you, you're a nurse. How much of a health hazard is putting all that shit in the ceiling?
Okay, considering he's using neon, I'm not sure how much. Okay, potentially if you bump into that and everything, but I don't think it will be able to catch the entire place on fire, even if the stuff is made on wood. I would argue that Kadikaru's handling of cables is actually much worse on that front.
Oh god, yeah, that cable mess.
Well, that's about it, yeah. That was the Angry Video Game Nerd Extravaganza. And with that, everybody, we have run out of time. So now we must go and do something else, everybody, because time sucks.
Like the ET game?
Yes.
Yes, tune in for Squirm Plays the ET game.
No. See, here's the thing, too. I want to finish this. See, unlike what James did regarding ET, I'm going to say what I genuinely think he should have said himself. I'm not going to record ET so we can continue because there's, like Theo said, there's nothing to talk about.
Literally nothing.
And I think the fan base would have been willing to listen to that.
Exactly. I would have been, if he had just come out on screen and said, guys, I'm not going to review the ET video because, to be perfectly honest, I tried scripting something, I tried making something out of this, and there's just not enough stuff in this game to really make an interesting review out of. If he had just said that, I'm pretty confident everybody would have been, okay, cool, fair beans. Yeah. But like I said, we ran out of time. So we have to go, everybody. See ya.
See ya.